All right, I call the work session of Hillsboro School District 1J to order. Our first order of business is the budget meeting. I think we have members of the budget committee here tonight. Thank you for being with us. Michelle, I believe you lead the presentation.
Great, thank you. Mark, can everyone hear me okay? Yes, okay. Also, in addition to our budget committee members that can make it here tonight, please make a note that Mr. Jeff Jones is on here as well. He is a critical component of our budget development and management throughout our fiscal year. And I just want to make sure that he's noted here. And with that, I think that we're well into our segment time. So I'll just go ahead and get started. I'm not going to, I don't think I'm savvy enough to monitor the chat. So I'm going to try to build in some spaces and count on Mark and or Mike or Rose to let me know when questions come up. But we'll go ahead and get started. If we could advance a slide. Thank you. Let's take a quick look at the agenda. These are the topics we're going to cover tonight. We're going to review our budget development process, kind of go over the components that are coming up in the next few months and our approach to the budget, our budget assumptions. We get those out there early because they are applied regardless of the fund, especially our expenditure assumptions that we use. I want to make sure that you guys are familiar with those. Kind of a new approach is a resource highlight. We're going to feature a different major fund. Each budget update is an opportunity to inform our stakeholders on our resources, where they come from and how they can be spent. And then we're going to talk a little bit about other budget considerations. And so those are fairly major contingencies that we have, that we are aware are out there. And we want to make sure that you guys are also aware of what those might be. And then our proposed budget, when it comes to, it will be further modified, and we want to make sure that you guys have a heads up in advance on what those changes are going to be. So we'll touch on that as well. Please advance. So this slide may look really familiar to folks who have been on the budget committee for a while. It talks about the local budget law requirements. So as a tax funded organization, there are very specific requirements in terms of what we do with our budget appropriations and the process we go through to make those happen in participation from the community. And that requires publications and a very formal structure. And then all of that kind of culminates with our budget committee meeting, the actual budget committee meeting, where the proposed budget is given and our superintendent's budget message is delivered on April 26th. The kind of the little sessions we have up until then are updates that we use to inform our budget committee and community at large about our current position and our outlook. And then we'll have the final budget hearing and adoption in at the June regular session board meeting, and we will implement our budget beginning July 1st. I always kind of take this opportunity to touch on something that most folks might take for granted or may not have a clear understanding of, is what the role of the budget committee is. So the budget committee will set appropriation levels. They will hear the message, they will understand the changes between budget years, but it's not the role of the budget committee members to manage programs, make those selections, manage staff or contracts or any of that. That's all within the purview of district management. So I think it's important to make that distinction here. All right, thank you. So for the revenue assumptions are pretty straightforward. We have our local revenue, the property taxes, they increase an average of 4% annually. It's pretty stable increase because of the cap from Measure 5, and they will typically see a 95% collection rate. And so those play into our forecasting numbers as we're looking ahead. We do charge an indirect rate to major grants at 4%. I think our most recent projection for that is to go down a little bit, and that's a calculation that we do with the Oregon Department of Education to help us cover the overhead costs related to some of the grants that we administer. We're predicting right now that state and local revenues will remain stable and that they're not going to decline from the current forecasts given for the continued recovery that we're in. We're also anticipating that our other sources are going to be based on historical experience. And so we're going to use our old normal and whole data to drive our projections into the future. Let's see here, a couple other grants that will kind of play into this. I wanted to be sure and mention here because they're major grants for us and they fund similar things that our general fund does in terms of classroom teachers and staff that support our schools. That would be our high school success and our student investment account grants. Those are pretty major, and we're assuming that they are also going to be fully funded. We're going to talk more about those in an upcoming session. All right. Any questions so far? I'm not hearing anybody. I can see Casey looking thoughtfully at me through the screen. Okay. Our expenditure assumptions are built around any staffing adjustments that we're making throughout the year to meet the needs of our students. And so we watch that carefully and measure that in terms of FTE. So that's something that's a consideration. We have salaries and benefits, and we just, are right in the middle of bargaining. Regardless of the bargain, we have some longer term calculations that we use to project our staffing and benefits. And so settlement may impact that in one way or another. For services, we are anticipating a 7% annual increase in utilities, fuels, substitutes, and service agreements based on our actual last full year, which was 2018-19. And so as you see that and we present our proposed budget, you'll see that reflected in the columns that represent those budget years. For supplies, we're anticipating a 4% annual increase, and again, using 2018-19 as a base year because of the varied service models that we had throughout the COVID experience. It's also, we're planning on the same number of current calendar days for school and contract days for staff. So if those change, whether it's in a negotiation or a board-driven decision, then that will also have to be reflected in our budget. And then we're planning on the in-person service model all year, including activities for the 22-23 year coming up. Okay, those are a high-level look at our expenditure assumptions. And so tonight, we're going to go ahead and dig into our general fund a little bit. And I just wanted to take this opportunity because we are not on the cusp of a legislative session that's going to determine our funding level for the next 2 years. We have an opportunity here to provide information about our funding sources in a deeper way. Typically, we would be looking at the big change in budget, and historically it has been a budget shortfall. And so we would be spending these sessions really looking carefully at how to craft the most stable environment for students while withstanding a budget shortfall. So that discussion's kind of set aside now, and we're hoping to be able to focus these sessions on resource highlights. So for the general fund is our operating budget that is non-restricted. And when I say non-restricted, it still needs to be spent in a way that's appropriate and falls under our Division 22 standards. It's not just willy-nilly spending, but it's all about school and making sure that we meet those minimum requirements for school. The sources include our state school fund, which is driven by the amount that we receive from the state school fund is driven by, let me see here, income taxes and local property taxes. that all contribute to the state school fund and are distributed to districts driven by enrollment and student attributes. So the fund distribution is weighted based on different types of students, and knowing that some services may cost more to offer than other students' services. So that is our state school fund, and it is the majority of our general fund. Local revenue, we talk a lot about that as well, would include the common school fund, which is driven by the state lands and resources, and we receive that twice a year. And it's just about just over $2 million for the 21-22 school year. And we have the federal forest fees, which other districts receive. Hillsboro School District doesn't receive any of those, but it's part of the local revenue calculation. Also, any interest, earnings, or indirect rate, activity fees, facility rentals, rebates, and there are some other miscellaneous revenues that we see. Those fall outside of the state school fund equalization formula. And so those things are just fairly predictable given our historical experience. And the final resource for our general fund is fund balance. And so it's not a reserve, that's a minimum that we kind of keep in our fund balance for contingencies and to make sure that we have enough cash in the bank to start the next school year. So our fund balance is currently targeted at 4%, which is low, but we've managed it year after year, and it has come up as a discussion for our budget committee on a regular basis. Okay. So you guys know how fond I am of graphs, and so I wanted to bring this one forward to you, and I'll describe it a little bit. I apologize that the numbers on it aren't bigger, but I still wanted to give you guys a sense of the general fund as a big slice of our total budget pie. We can see that the construction fund, and this represents our current school year. This isn't a projection for next school year. You'll see that as part of the proposed budget document, but this gives us a sense of what our finances are made up of. Our construction fund this year, we had an $83 million budget. It has to be spent on things that were approved by voters under the ballot title. You can see the debt service fund is just over $52 million, and that is a separate tax revenue that we collect in order to pay debt service on those bond funds. And then we have our special revenue fund, and that would include all of our major grants, like the student investment account, high school success. It holds our nutrition services and all of our federal programs, including IDEA. So they kind of all of those restricted funds live in that space. The general fund is represented by the light blue wedge, Pac-Man, and then it's expanded over to the right. You can see what makes up the general fund. So you can see that our state sources, the state school fund at almost $149 million, that makes up the majority of our general fund. And property taxes comprise $85 million. And the two of those are all paid to the state and redistributed to the district by a per student weighted formula. You can see it to the wedge of the beginning fund balance that's targeted at 4%. And then those other funds that I mentioned to you, the county school fund, interest in investments, you can see that that's a fairly small component, although we do our very best to maximize that. All right. Any questions about this great chart?
Great chart.
Thank you. Go ahead and advance. All right. This should also be fairly familiar terminology to folks who have been to the budget rodeo a time or two. When we present our budget to you, we present it both by function and by object. And so by object, it's just a different way to slice up the same pie. So you can see on the left-hand side, We have our salaries and employee benefits. The way you see that here, I separated them out, but together they comprise 83% of our budget. We are a service business, and anything that we do with our personnel is directly impacted and impacted by our budget. You can see our services. Again, that includes our substitutes and utilities. All of those things fall under services. Supplies are actually a very small component of our overall budget. And then other things would be insurance and fees, liability insurance and fees. And then on the right-hand side, you can see by function, which is another even higher level view. You can see how much of our budget is divided into instruction versus support services, which would include transportation, non-licensed personnel, facilities maintenance, all of those things. And our community services and contingency is just a little bit of space that we put in there to take care of things that happen over the course of the year. Please advance.
Michelle, quick question on, sorry, Michelle, quick question. So I sort of remember colloquially we saying 85%. So is this a reflection of something with COVID, or is it real number more like 83 normally, or?
It's more like 83 normally. As we begin to use our other major grants for staffing, that kind of changes that dynamic a little bit for our general fund. You know, how for the last,
okay.
Yeah, for the last 2 years, we've had to remove components from our general fund and have them funded by our student investment account. And I think that may play a part of that decrease here as well.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Mark. These are our other budget considerations. So we have the extended special funds outlook. And so those are those major grants. They're fairly new to the district, and to have them fully funded, 21-22 is the first year that High School Success and the Student Investment Account are fully funded. Because of that, we don't have a lot of history to rely on. And right now we're planning that those are going to continue and be stable for us. But if for some reason that becomes different, it will definitely impact our general fund. Nutrition services is actually a pretty major driver. You know, it's a big thing, and it's always been a self-sustained program. But the last 2 years especially have changed in terms of how we administer the program. And I think, you know, the extended outlook for that is kind of to be determined, but that may require some subsidy in the future as well. Economic stability. Oh, yes.
I'm sorry. I know that when Monique and I took on our position, at that point, we were talking about problems with supply chain, food, how we were storing it. It was kind of a big deal. We navigated it successfully and were able to keep an incredible number of children fed the whole 9 yards. In the district went total, everybody's on free lunch, whatever. But I guess I'm not understanding what the impact, that had to have been an impact to our budget. So I was just trying to understand a little bit more about what happened with nutrition services. Are we higher or lower than last year? What are we projecting?
Yeah. Thank you very much for your question, Nancy. So what I'm thinking about when I listed it here was 22-23. We're currently under a program where, like you said, everyone gets free lunch, and that's due to the pandemic. But as we come out of that, with the increase in expenses and, like you said, supply chain issues, we don't have an extended, you know, that's not a forever thing that will be as heavily subsidized for that. So to me, that is a forecasting variable that could be out there. So far, our services director, Nate Rodell, has done an amazing job forecasting and managing within his program. But together, we work on that together in terms of the longer view for those services.
Are we able to use some of the one-time recovery funds to fund some of that during COVID time?
Actually,
Yeah,
Michelle, is that being funded by the state right now?
Yeah, well, it's federal program, but it's administered through the state.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the point is that that will come to an end, like any other program, and then hopefully we won't have to pay anything back, but that would then impact us because we have to pick up if we maintain it as.
We probably wouldn't continue on trip, but yeah.
Yeah, we do monitor that very closely. We just don't have any, 2023 and beyond visibility into what that's going to look like.
Understood, thank you.
You bet. Let's see here, economic stability. So our next quarterly forecast is February 9th, but currently we are still seeing an uptick in everything business-wise in the state. So we'll continue with our conservative estimates based on the information that is shared with us, given the economic conditions. Student enrollment is so critical to us in terms of the revenue we receive and our staffing levels. And so if our student enrollment is on the decline, then we need to adjust our staffing levels accordingly. And we do that. But that will look budgetarily like a decrease in revenue. So I put that here as well. We do have our bargaining outcomes to consider. Currently we do have proposals out there that are sustainable for the 3-year period. But as the movement happens over time, that may impact our budget in a different way, where it's our goal to be sustainable. All right, one more slide. This is our proposed budget document changes. So this is year 2 of our plan to qualify for the Meritorious Budget Award, which sounds super fancy, and it is. But the reason we want to do that is because it has all of these standards regarding transparency and our ability to communicate information to our community. And we want to make sure that we're doing that in the best way possible. And so it's all pretty much the same information that's been in our budget document all along, with some supplemental information added on top of it, and then additional extended forecasting that we haven't included in the past. So we're hoping that those components are going to be well received. Our phase 1 was, thank you, Jeff Jones, and we're looking forward to our proposing those additional changes. All right. This slide is for Mike Scott. It's not complete without a kitten picture. So,
All right. We've been starting in the room. Let's start online. Do you have questions from anybody in the Zoom call attending virtually?
Michelle, this is Christine. I had just a quick question. Sure, and I don't know that this applies necessarily to the school district, but are we anticipating that there would be any impact from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act? I know that's mostly focused on things like, transportation and bridges and stuff like that, but I was wondering if that might have an impact for things like, internet or anything like that.
I don't have any information yet on how that would apply to schools, and
Okay.
I would leave it to Jordan Beveridge to really, just like he does for E-rate, he kind of bird dogs any opportunity we have to expand our infrastructure for technology. So I do think that it's on the radar, but I haven't directly received anything. And typically that would trickle down to us through the Department of Education, through
Okay.
Oregon Department of Education. Great
Okay.
question.
Anybody else online? All right, questions in here?
I guess, Michelle, you had mentioned there was some discussion around our ending fund with our budget committee. So I was wondering if there is a certain direction or just thoughts that you could share about that.
Yeah, so during our last budget cycle, that was a topic, actually a couple different times. And I think it was really Christine from her lens brought that forward as worrisome. And we had been recently downgraded by Moody's, which is a rating agency for investors, because of our low fund balance and our student enrollment decline, or lack of growth is how they put it. So I think that that is a concern. It's really hard to develop a monetary estimate of the impact. But that's the board's discretion to kind of set our target levels. And there's a tremendous amount of pressure for us to use and invest the dollars we have when we have them and not sit on them. So I definitely understand both sides of that conversation.
So I mean, for a decade plus of budget cut years, the previous boards, and maybe some people on this board at least once, approved a reduction in the ending fund balance. One, I don't think we could increase the ending fund balance enough to move the needle with Moody's. So that's an interesting side note, but I mean, unless we get the 10 or 12% ending fund balance, I don't think Moody's is going to take notice if we go from 4% to 4.5. So what would it take, board action, budget committee action, for us to move? So I think it was 5% not too long ago, ending fund balance, to sort of edge our way back up to at least that, like maybe 0.5 now and then 0.5 2 years from now. Like what does it take to make that happen? Action from this committee, action from the board, action in your department? How would that work?
Well, as we develop the budget, we can build that into it. Just understanding that creates a decrease somewhere else in our assumptions. So if we're holding that back, and then it removes that amount from the appropriations that we can set for all of those functions on the expenditure side. So I'm happy to bring it back as part of our continued updates and kind of illustrate the impact of what that would be, if that would be useful. And then, general direction on what to include in the proposed document would be useful.
0.5% would be roughly 1.2 million.
I think it would also be helpful to know, like, how much would be significant enough to make that bump increase on our rating. Like, what's the goal that we're aiming for if we're wanting to do this?
Yeah, they're typically an 8 to 12% is where they said we needed to be to not be downgraded. That was the feedback I got from Moody's. And I don't know that that's the end all, answer to our fund. I just don't know how that would impact us in terms of bond sales. We've been very successful at that. And that was a ratings change that was put forward by a change in their scoring matrix, and it impacted many districts in Oregon, not just Hillsboro. So that's a tough decision.
I think it would be great to have that information just going forward, though, as an option just to look at.
I would say the one thing to keep in mind is that this is the second year of a biennium. And last year we constructed a budget that was meant to run for 2 years. So being able to recoup significant amount of money to add to the ending fund balance that we weren't planning on last year when we set the budget will be a challenge for us.
Yeah, it'd be easier in the next cycle.
Be easier next time.
Yeah.
I guess my other question then is, I'm not so worried about Moody's, because I was aware that the Moody's, the formula that they use changed, and it hit a lot of districts. It wasn't just us, and it wasn't just the West Coast. It hit a lot of entities. But my bigger concern is I guess I'm trying to figure out why we had so much in an ending fund that we would make. That just sounds a little bit wonky to me, that we would have so much in an ending fund, and then we get good grades, and then suddenly when we have to use the money, we're in a pandemic, and now we have low, and now we've been downgraded. So there's more going on, I think. And I think I'm kind of like Christine. I think I would want to know, I just want to know a little bit more about what's actually happening, because we obviously have an ending fund balance every year. So what's our average threshold? Did it go below what it should? Did it So there's a little bit more context that I think I might want to know about. And Michelle, it's not that I don't trust you, it's just that when you hear we got downgraded and then everybody goes, ooh, and it's like, no, it's just Moody's, calm down. But to the point, Christine, don't you laugh at me, but the point is.
I'm so sorry.
It's really about the change in the balance. And is that healthy or not healthy? What should be our baseline and where should we be going? That's where I'm trying to get to.
So the ending fund balance target did not change during COVID. It remained 4%. The change happened 4 years ago, maybe. So it went from 5% to 4.5% to 4% as we were dealing with very deep budget cuts from the state, trying to save one classroom's worth of teacher, one teacher to student ratio as best we could. The Moody's, it's an irrelevant part of the equation for me, the decision. For me, we're not in a cut budget situation right now, which is remarkable based on where we've been for the last 15 years. So sort of, again, understanding that my time on the board is limited, it's sort of trying to help ensure future boards have that in their toolbox when things get difficult again. So if we were able to step it back to 4.5% and then to 5%, it's not a lot. It's merely, I think in the past we've used $1 million is changing one teacher to student ratio, right? It takes $1 million to do that.
Or 2.2.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
2 million
2.2.
to do that, yeah.
So million is roughly a day of school, 880 or something is roughly a day of school. Right? Okay, so we're talking about while things are not terrible, I mean, I think we're still underfunded, especially when we have to use targeted funds from the student investment account to fill holes that are left in the general fund, simply because the way that current service level is calculated is not accurate in our state, and we're not being funded at the level we're supposed to be funded. So all that in mind, we did not have to cut for the first time in a long time. And if possible, I would like to make it so boards have that in the future, when things get terrible again, which they will, have at least that leverage point to be able to use 0.5% to try to keep something more.
And I think the other thing besides, the Moody scoring and how that impacts us, but also like, what is healthy for our organization? What are the standards by which we should be? So if the goal for Moody was like 12%, which is like 8 to 12, which is crazy, right? For us to even think about something.
When are
like
we
that.
ever gonna have
But
4%?
Thinking about best practices for other districts our size, what is also a healthy goal that we should be thinking about? That's the information that I would wanna maybe look at for our next budget session also.
Well, what's healthy and then what's reasonable for us and what we need. So
So
Michelle, I
Michelle,
had a slightly different question. It's also based sort of on fund balance, but with a 4%, question is, how are we doing liquidity wise? I mean, are we in good shape and everything like that? Are we able to cover our bills pretty well and not have too much stress and stuff for the admin staff? So we're doing
Yes.
okay.
Yes, our cash flows are in good shape.
Good.
Other questions for Michelle? Or the budget in general?
no, but thank you, Michelle. This gave us a little bit more context and we appreciate you putting up with our questions. Thank you.
I got a couple then, so I'm supposed to go last. Can you give us a couple examples or a few examples of the way some of the one-time COVID money is being used separate from the general fund? So I don't think any of us want to use those monies to commit to things long-term, but it would be good for us to realize some of the things we're able to do with the one-time money that we're receiving to sort of help with the current situation.
Oh man, let me reflect on my list.
Huh. You can bring that back
A lot of tech. I can give you a quick overview. We have a lot of technology support. Extra classroom teachers are coming out of there, extra teachers at Hillsboro Online Academy, additional classified support, contact tracers. We have a whole list of items that I'm happy to shoot back over to you guys or include with a budget update and send it to the budget committee as well.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Well, Michelle, that is one of the dates that we have set aside to give an update on some of those other pots of money. So I think we can cover that.
Yeah, pull it into, like, I just,
It'll be-
you know, I know we probably don't have a whole ton of viewers, but the viewers we have would probably like to understand a little bit about how, you know, some of the other funding we have outside of our normal operating procedures are being used, so.
Yes, our bargaining stakeholders also have been really interested in that, and we've shared that through several information requests with them as well. So yes, I'll bring that back.
My last question is sort of more theoretical, and it's just me not understanding, so if we don't have an answer for it today, maybe we can look it up. So you mentioned one of the assumptions we have is that the number of contact days remains the same. And I know everyone is having discussion, part of COVID recovery, part of just general, the shortness of our school year, adding contact days. But my guess is when you ask people to be here more, it costs more. I don't think there's a way for the general fund to pay more, though. I don't think the general fund goes, students here, X amount. I think it's annually per student, not annual per student per number of days. So is that about right? Like, if we wanted to expand the number of contract days.
That
we
is
have to find
correct.
that money.
We have to come up with more money.
Yeah,
And the budget.
That is correct. Our school year is funded the same way based on the number of students, not on the number of school days. So you were.
if we decide to add 5 contact days, add an extra week to the calendar somehow, and, you know, everybody bought into the idea, and our unions and staff and everybody was all on board. The state doesn't give us any more money for doing that. We have to, yeah,
Correct. We have to come up with
okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Budget Committee members, for being here. We appreciate your insight and taking time with us on a Tuesday night.
Straight to Travis.
Straight to Travis. All right, our next is a COVID-19 update, and it's all cabinet, and Travis leads us off.
Great, thanks. I'll go through a list of notes that we made, and I'll just defer to anybody who wants to chime in or answer questions after that. Today was the first day I've seen a graph from Washington County Public Health that showed a downturn in the number of cases, both the case rate per 100,000 and the total case count in Washington County. If you've been watching the line, it's been going straight up. Today it went sideways and a little bit down. If that's one thing to celebrate, there it is. Hooray. That's the first time it's been down since December 3rd in the 2-week look back. We continue to look at data every day at 3 o'clock. We have a team from HR. We have Michelle Brady, our emergency preparedness and safety manager, and our HR team looking at staff unfilled positions, student attendance at every school. And then we take a look at the custodial shortfall that we have, as well as folks who are out in front offices running our schools. And in that meeting, we make decisions about how to update the whole cabinet and executive team about any kind of classroom or school closures that we have and anything that we need to do. Usually the outcome is to deploy more folks from the central office. I can tell you that in the last couple of weeks, we've been deploying about 100% of the people from the central office who can work in schools in classified, licensed, and admin positions to keep our schools open. So huge shout out to everyone who's making accommodations in school buildings to cover classrooms and periods and reading groups, as well as folks from the central office who have stopped doing their jobs to work in schools. We have a pop-up clinic that continues to serve staff each day at the Oak Street campus. We've tested 900 plus individuals with COVID tests between 8 and noon each morning. And that's keeping our staff aware of whether they have COVID or not, and hopefully returning back to work as soon as they don't have symptoms anymore. We have begun to focus our contact tracing on lunch groups and activities where masks are not being worn regularly. Instead of contact tracing deeply every case of COVID that we find out about, the guidance from the state shifted where in a masked school environment, in a classroom, on a bus, we're not contact tracing folks who are close contacts if they're wearing a mask. We do continue to do deep contact tracing with folks who eat together at lunch, in their lunch pods, and folks involved in extracurricular activities. Looking forward, we know that individuals need to get boosters in order to be considered fully vaccinated with the vaccine sequence plus a booster. And we've given staff until March 1st to get boosted. Until then, we're considering fully vaccinated staff fully vaxxed. On March 1st, those folks who choose to not get a booster will be subject to more quarantine and isolation restrictions than folks who do have their full sequence plus a booster. At this time, we're shifting resources toward encouraging students to wear masks and staff to wear masks, encouraging staff to get boosters, as well as students who are old enough to get those, and toward testing. We've been running our clinic for a few weeks now with Binax Now tests. We have also ordered iHealth tests, which are going to be distributable tests with 2 rapid antigen tests per package. And we're going to be able to use those to help students and staff be aware if they have COVID-19 and use those in order to shorten quarantines and isolations, we hope. So those are the general updates on the guidance and where we are with testing and staffing and all the challenges that continue to face us with COVID. Happy to have anybody else chime in if they have more info that I missed. And we're happy to answer questions as a cabinet group because we're all working on this together. Go ahead, Beth, I see your hand up.
I just wanted to make sure that the board understood, and anyone watching this, that the comment about boosters and the March 1 deadline does not have anything to do with people's employment status. It's not part of the governor's mandate. It's strictly a determinant of whether or not you will be asked to quarantine for 5 days if you are in close contact with someone with COVID-19.
Seth?
Thanks, Seth, as a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask really quickly if we have any idea when we're going to have those at-home testing kits, like their estimated time of arrival, or how soon we'll be able to implement that.
Yeah, thanks, Seth. We got notice that they've been shipped, but we don't know when they're going to arrive. We hope that they'll arrive this week and that we'll be able to distribute those out to schools ASAP.
Are there any more members of cabinet that want to add additional information?
Do we have any schools that are right now out? How many?
Hey, Travis, maybe a rundown of the classrooms that are currently in quarantine?
Maybe not classroom level, but.
Well, at least the schools.
Or, yeah, there's
Yeah.
just a few.
Yeah, okay, I've got it. This is a challenge, you guys. We have a couple of classrooms closed at one classroom, a 4th grade at Quitama, 2 at Farmington View. We've had a couple schools come back online. Orenco, life skills class came back today. Lincoln Street Elementary School came back today. And that's it. So we're looking at, like, right now, we don't have many school closures. We have more like singleton classroom closures where we have 5 or more cases usually. When we have 5 cases in one learning environment, we report that to the county as an outbreak, quote unquote. That is their kind of baseline for tracking when there's an environment, a workplace environment that has multiple COVID cases.
Any other board questions?
I just want to say phenomenal job, Travis. In my day job, I'm doing the same thing you're doing, and it is tough. And thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, big kudos to everybody for doing everything they can to keep our buildings open as safely as possible. Yeah. It's a tremendous effort. I appreciate how early you start your day and how late it goes to try to ensure that.
Yep, everybody's been involved, so thanks for the shout out.
All right, that is our final item in the work session. Wow, we got back on track. Pretty good. Look at that. We'll take a short break and then do we stay on the same Zoom? Right, we don't change the links this time. All right, we'll stay on the same Zoom and we'll be back 5-10 minutes or something like that as soon as everybody's back gathered. Thank you, everyone. Work session is adjourned. All right, I will call our regular session to order. We'll begin as we always do with the flag salute. Everybody here, it's over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As we gather here today, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge that our district service area is on the occupied traditional homelands of the Ifolity indigenous people, lands we now call Washington County in the state of Oregon. We honor the indigenous people whose traditional and ancestral homelands we stand on, the Tualatin Kalapuya, the Kaflamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Malala, bands of the Chinook, and many other indigenous nations of the Columbia River. In remembering these communities, we honor their legacy, their lives, and their ancestors. We also recognize the urban indigenous native First Peoples community living in the metro area, which includes over 400 tribal nations. The Hillsboro School District is committed to the recognition and education regarding tribal and local history and working with our local tribes in partnership. All right, we have a few proclamations this evening. Oh, you're first up, huh?
I am. The first proclamation this evening is for School Board Recognition Month. The Hillsboro School District Board of Directors establishes clear standards for student performance. The Hillsboro School District Board of Directors ensure that student assessments are tied to established standards. The Hillsboro School District Board of Directors are accountable to the community for operating schools that support student achievement. The Hillsboro School District Board of Directors aligns school district resources to ensure that students meet standards. The Hillsboro School District Board of Directors build collaborative relationships based on trust, teamwork, and shared accountability. The Hillsboro School District Board of Directors are committed to continuous education and training on issues related to student achievement. The Hillsboro School District does hereby declare its appreciation to the Board of Directors and proclaim the month of January 2022 to be School Board Recognition Month. I urge all community members to join me in recognizing the dedication and hard work of local school board members in preparing for today's students for tomorrow's world. Just on a personal note, because that's a little stuffy. So let me just say thank you for everything that you do for our students. You are leading during a remarkable time where you are likely not experiencing a great deal of appreciation, except for maybe some of the stuff today that you received from the schools, but really difficult time to lead in. We deal with issues that have become more politically sensitive than ever before. You continually keep an eye on the best interest of students. So just on a personal level, thank you for everything that you do, for the many hours that you put in, and more than anything, that the care you take of our students. It's greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thanks. And I will say to all the board members who are attending virtually, I don't know if the owls do a 360 view, but I don't know if you can see how high the stack goes over the dais there. So every year January surprises me. I forget that it's Board Appreciation Month, and I love when I come in. There's some stuff here, and there's a giant bag that you're gonna have to take all this home. But Rose has provided one, and the students. Is Kaylee here?
She is not.
She is not. So the students, you guys all have a giant pile of stuff too. So I think Rose and I are gonna coordinate delivery for everyone who's not here over the next few days. So yeah, thank you all for your service, and we'll make sure that I'm just so grateful to all the schools that have provided us stuff with their names and logos on them. I've already got one of the lanyards in play here today. Our next proclamation is from Nancy.
The Hillsboro School District honors and acknowledges the central role of Black Americans in U.S. history. The Hillsboro School District is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and rejects the long history of institutional racism towards Black Americans. The Hillsboro School District pledges to stand against bigotry, intolerance, and hate, and follow the lead set by generations of Black Americans who have courageously led us to the pursuit of equality. The Hillsboro School District has been enriched by the diversity of perspective and experience of our Black community members who have made valuable and long-lasting contributions to our district. The Board of Education of the Hillsboro School District do hereby proclaim the month of February 2022 to be Black History Month. We urge all community members to join us in recognizing the many contributions and achievements of Black Americans to the development of prosperity of our community. Thank you very much to our fellows.
All right, thank you. Our next proclamation is Erica.
The Hillsboro School District appreciates that without school bus drivers, many students would not have safe, reliable transportation to and from school. The Hillsboro School District believes that it is important to salute and appreciate school bus drivers and recognize the invaluable contributions they make to education and safety. The Hillsboro School District recognizes that each year bus drivers transport more than 13,000 students between home, school, and events safely. The Hillsboro School District each year, 190 buses driven by dedicated drivers travel more than 1,600,000 miles. The Hillsboro School District applauds bus drivers along with trainers, support staff, dispatchers, mechanics, and all staff in the transportation program who are committed every day to an outstanding safety record. The Board of Education of the Hillsboro School District do hereby proclaim February 22nd, 2022 to be School Bus Driver Appreciation Day. We urge all community members to join us in recognizing the many contributions and achievements of school bus drivers to the Hillsboro School District community.
All right, thank you. Our last proclamation is Yadira.
The Hillsboro School District appreciates that school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development. The Hillsboro School District knows that school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children. The Hillsboro School District values school counselors' work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves. The Hillsboro School District applauds that school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society. The Hillsboro School District recognizes that comprehensive developmental school counseling programs are an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve in school. The Board of Education of the Hillsboro School District do hereby extend our gratitude to the counselors of the Hillsboro School District and proclaim the week of February 7th through 11th, 2022 as School Counselor Week. We urge all citizens to join us in recognizing the dedication and hard work of school counselors in preparing today's students for tomorrow's world.
Thank you, everybody. All right, next up is to approve our agenda. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors approve the agenda as printed.
It's been moved by Director Lopez and seconded by Director Ward that the Board of Directors approve the agenda as printed. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I guess, do we roll call vote? Okay, Rose, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Lisa Allen,
Aye.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas,
Aye.
Monique Ward, Mark Watson.
Aye. Motion carries. The agenda is approved. I guess just a note, Dr. Kim is not with us tonight, so what you see is all of us. All right. Our next item is the consent agenda.
No, audience.
Oh, audience comments. Okay, sorry. And Beth, do you have anybody fill out cards here tonight too?
No, not anybody in person.
Not anybody in person, okay. So Beth, can you take us through anybody who's submitted and interested in doing audience time while we're here? Do we have some, right?
We have 3. So if you want to read the disclaimer, then I can call on them.
All right. Public participation in board meetings is governed by policy BDDH. Visitors who wish to speak before the board must complete an intent to speak card available at the top of the HSD homepage or at the table at the entrance of the boardroom, and submit it via Google form, by email, or in person to the executive assistant of the board of directors, Rose Ramon. Commenters should include their name and, if speaking for an organization, the name of the organization. A spokesperson should be designated to represent a group with common purpose. Up to 3 minutes at the board's discretion will be allowed for comment. Commenters may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs, but in public sessions, the board will not hear comments regarding any individual district staff member. Commendations involving staff members should be sent to the superintendent. Channels for the board's review of legitimate complaints involving individuals include board policy KL, public complaint. If appropriate, the board chair will connect the visitor with an administrator to receive comments regarding personnel. Any hearing conducted before the board regarding personnel shall take place in an executive session. Comments aimed at state and federally protected classes shall be prohibited. Anger, rudeness, ridicule, obscene and profane language, impatience, lack of respect for others, and personal attacks are not acceptable behavior. Demonstrations in support or opposition to a speaker or idea are not permitted. The board thanks all visitors for their presence and appreciates the input of community members. All right, Beth.
Okay, our speaker will be Jackie Spross.
Hi, my name's Jackie Spross. I'm a Hillsboro School District community member and former school board director. I really didn't think I'd be back here in this capacity. However, I wanted to talk to you about policy KGBB, firearms prohibited. That's on the consent agenda for approval tonight. Do you know how easy it is to obtain a concealed handgun license in Oregon? Let me tell you. You can watch a 46-minute video, take an 11-question test, order your certificate, process the certificate in person with the Washington County Sheriff's Office. And according to the Washington County Sheriff's Office, in Washington County alone, there are approximately 28,000 residents with a concealed handgun license. As the owner of a handgun, I support people's freedom to own a gun. However, with that freedom, as with any freedom, comes the responsibility to act in the best interest and safety of others. The only reason that I can think of that makes any sense whatsoever as to why anyone outside of law enforcement would even want to bring a gun to school or a school-sponsored activity or event is to do harm. Think about it. What other sensible reason do you think someone would bring a gun to school, to a football game, to a band concert, other than to do harm? As a school district, as a school board, your job is to protect our 19,000 students and staff with your policies and processes. There are many events, situations, and circumstances that no matter what you do or decide, you cannot protect them. This policy, however, is one way that you can definitely, positively, and seriously protect every student and staff member in our district. I urge you to approve this policy as written in the best interest of our district community. Thank you for allowing me time to speak.
Thank you, Jackie, for joining us, and thanks for all your time and service on the board. Next, Beth.
Okay, our next speaker is Hillary Ulig.
Hello, my name is Hillary Ulig. I'm a former elementary school teacher, a 20-year resident of Hillsboro, a parent of 2 graduates of Liberty High School, and I'm also the Oregon chapter leader for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I'm also speaking to urge support for policy KGBB. I spoke at the December meeting and was grateful to hear support from board members for this common sense safety policy to prohibit guns on school district property, including for concealed carry firearms. Oregon is one of only 8 states that allow concealed firearms in schools. I'm glad to see KGBB is on the consent agenda tonight, as this demonstrates your dedication to keeping students safe from danger of easily accessible firearms on school grounds. I submitted a letter to the school board with over 24 Hillsboro Moms Demand Action volunteers and community members who've signed on in support of policy KGBB. And I also suggest a follow-up safety measure of sending home information to parents about the legal requirement of secure storage of firearms, which will increase school safety, since over 80% of underage school shooters use guns acquired from home or the home of a relative or friend. I also wanted to give you a quick update that since the December meeting, several other school boards have voted unanimously to pass KGBB, including Bend Lapine, Lake Oswego, Tiger Tualatin, as well as Lane Community College. And also the Westland, Wilsonville, and Corvallis school boards have KGBB on upcoming agendas. So I wanted to make sure to pass that along to you. Thank you for everything you're doing to keep our students and staff safe. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Beth?
Thank you, Hillary. Next speaker is Lily Donis.
Hello, can everyone hear me all right? Awesome. Hello, good evening. My name is Lily Donis, and I am a senior at Liberty High School. And I'm also here today to express my support of the KGBB. Since I've been in 3rd grade, there have been at least 15 incidents of gunfire on school grounds, resulting in 17 deaths and 13 injuries in Oregon. And an FBI analysis from 2000 to 2013 found that of 160 active shooter incidents, they were rarely stopped by armed individuals. These are situations that I feel would be probably the most likely reason someone would feel the necessity to have a concealed license to use and carry a firearm onto school grounds. I do, however, consider that the safety of our school is very well handled by our school resource officer, who has received the proper training to not only handle a gun, but be adept at dealing with situations in which the use of a gun would be necessary. And for these reasons, that is why I'm here tonight to express my support. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth, do we have any others?
That's it. You just received one submission of written comment.
Yeah, so for board members who may have looked recently, there's one written comment in your packet area, in the folder area. So, and nobody here, right? Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Our next item is the consent agenda.
I move that the Board of Directors approve the consent agenda as printed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as printed. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I would like to remove a few policies from the consent agenda.
Okay. Can you let us know? Oh, can you let us know what those are?
Yep. Policy AC, GBA, GBEA, IGBJ, IJ, and KGBB.
All right. We have those cataloged. Just a reminder for everyone at home and my colleagues, the consent agenda is intended to pass through items that require no further discussion by any member of the board. So any member of the board can choose to remove any item and have further discussion regarding it. So we will move discussion of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 policies to the end of our action items. And address them at that time, since we would like to have further discussion regarding them. So,
Mark?
Director, yes, Director Allen.
Can you say more loudly what the policy notes are that we're doing? We couldn't really hear very well on the Zoom.
Sure, yes, it is policy AC, policy GBA, Golf Bravo Alpha, GBEA, IGDJ, IJ, and KGBB. That should be 6. You want to check my math there?
Yeah.
All right.
Was that the list one?
That sound accurate?
Seth,
Monique?
Yes.
Yes. Question?
I was just going to ask if you could repeat that list one more time, please.
Absolutely. Policy, and so I believe these are in order as they appear in the consent agenda. So you should be able to follow from top down to find them. Policy AC, Alpha Charlie. Policy GBA. Policy GBEA. Policy IGDJ. Policy IJ. And policy KGBB. So again, it's anyone's prerogative to remove items from the consent agenda, and we will easily accommodate that and move those to be addressed after our existing action items. Director Allen, were you the one who made the motion for the consent agenda?
Yes.
Could you maybe amend it or withdraw it so we can advance the remaining items on the consent agenda?
Yes. What would be your preference?
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Okay, then I withdraw my motion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I move to amend the consent agenda to remove policies AC, GBA, GBEA, IGDJ, IJ, KGBB.
I second.
It's been moved by Director Lopez and seconded by Director Ward to approve the consent agenda with the removal of policies AC, GBA, GBEA, IGDJ, IJ, and KBB. Is there any further discussion? Do we get roll call? Yeah, I guess roll call vote, yeah.
Lisa Allen,
I'm sorry, point of order. I want to make sure I know what I'm voting on, so I'm a little confused. I apologize. So the motion that we're voting on is to approve the consent agenda with those policies removed, or am I agreeing that I think those policies should be removed?
We're only voting to approve the consent agenda items with these removed.
Okay.
Advance the other consent agenda items that no one on the board wants to discuss.
Okay. I apologize. I wasn't sure. So then, so yes, that's fine.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas. Aye. Monique Ward. Aye. Mark Watson.
Aye. All right. The remaining consent agenda is approved unanimously. All right. So we skipped down to reports and discussion, right?
I'm sorry. Erica did a motion to amend the consent agenda to remove the policies.
Oh, yeah.
Now we need to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Oh, all right. So I said it wrong a second ago.
So you have a withdrawal of the original.
How do we withdraw one that I already said passed?
We passed the amend to, Erica said it right.
Erica said it right?
Yes.
Okay.
And-
So Lisa, what you were voting on was not what we thought you were voting on. What you were voting on was to amend.
That's okay.
Okay.
I'm not mad about it. It would have passed anyway. But I do think, just as a point of order, we don't actually have to vote on that. I think that any board member can remove any item from the consent agenda without a vote, technically.
Correct.
Yeah, well, yes, that's right. But if we want to pass the remaining consent agenda, we have to make a motion to amend the
Okay.
consent agenda. So what we technically just passed was the amendment of the consent agenda.
So now do we need a motion to approve the amended consent agenda?
There you go. I think.
Okay, so I move that we approve the amended consent agenda.
Second.
All right, it has been moved by Director Allen and seconded by Director Lopez that we approve the amended consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? All right. Fire away. No, I think there's a lot of that time.
Lisa Allen,
Aye.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas. Aye. Monique Ward. Aye. Mark Watson.
Aye.
Thank you.
The board unanimously approves the remainder of the consent agenda. Okay. My apologies, everyone. All right, now reports and discussions. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, reports and discussions, and this, I would say is easily one of my favorite times of the year in my brief time on the board, where we hear about the great work that our instructors are doing to try to bring new opportunities to our students. And here we have 3 today. Travis, are you kicking us off?
I am. I can set the stage a little bit, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Great. I think Rose is going to elevate some of the audience members to the panel. And so I'll set the stage for our presentation tonight. Mark, you said it really well. This is a celebration for us, and it's of all the things that we've been challenged with over the last couple of years. Our work has continued to offer incredible opportunities for our students. And so tonight you're going to hear about 4 new course proposals. And despite delays and setbacks and challenges with teachers needing to adapt to the current situation, our teachers have taken it on themselves to propose these new courses and changes to current courses. And I just want to celebrate and appreciate them for being here tonight and for all the work that went into this at the school level, and then clearing these course proposals through all the administrators of all of our high schools collectively, and then presenting to the Community Curriculum Advisory Committee. And now these proposals are coming to you. The role of the teachers tonight is to tell you a little bit about their courses. The role of our CCAC members is to tell you about the conversation that happened at the Community Curriculum Advisory Committee. And then tonight, we hope that you would put on consideration these 4 course proposals. And then on February 22nd, we hope that you would vote to approve these new courses. And at that time, the outcome would be that these courses are available to be offered at any of our high schools. No school is compelled to offer these courses. This is the process whereby these courses are approved by the school board in order to be offered in the future. So I would ask you to listen to the presentation tonight, and that'll include the teachers and then members of our CCAC. I'll kick it to Becky King-Smith, who is our Director of Secondary Teaching and Learning, and she'll introduce the teachers in the presentation. Then I'll introduce members of the CCAC, and then we'll ask for any questions at that time or conversation that the board would like to have. So with that, Becky King-Smith, thank you for your leadership in this area, and I'll pass it to you.
Thank you, Travis. Good evening, everybody. If we could go to the next slide. As Travis mentioned, we have 4 proposals that we will be bringing to you this evening. And all 4 of these proposals are connected to career and college pathways in our schools. These all are connected to career and college pathways that are currently already established. You'll be looking at either some alterations to the programs, some new pathways within certain career pathways that already exist at our schools, and then some modifications as well. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce all of the teachers now, because then we're going to go through the slide deck where each teacher will have a couple minutes to just share a little bit about the connections to career opportunities and some skill building that students gain from these courses. So for Civics and Community Service 2, we have Erica Du Bois and Trig Rogers from Century High School and Lisa Pearson from Glencoe High School. For Fire Science, we have Rhea Duncan from Liberty High School. For Aerospace, we have Sherry Fisher from Liberty High School. And for Film, we'll have Lori Delaposen from Glencoe High School. So if we want to go ahead and get started with Civics and Community Service, and I'll kick it to those teachers to share a little bit about the proposal they're making.
Perfect. Hi, my name is Lisa Pearson. I am a teacher at Glencoe High School. I teach a pretty big scope of things, AP psychology, psychology, and then I've had the opportunity to kind of come on as a teacher there for the Civics and Community Service program. I'm presenting tonight on behalf of both Erica and Trig, who are the Civics and Community Service teachers at Century, and we're looking to get our senior capstone course transitioned from a semester-long course to a year-long course. And so when we kind of were in the process of thinking about this, we had kind of three main goals as to why we really wanted to expand the course. We wanted to focus on academics, mentorship, and then community engagement, which is really the focal point of this pathway. For academics, the extended class would give us more time with students to make authentic senior projects and senior papers. It's really fun as students have had kind of a structured K through 11 experience, their 12th grade year, just to get to say, like, you get to pick an amazing project that you get to do, and you get to pick a senior paper, and you can do it on anything related to your career. And so they get really excited about it and take ownership over it. And so having that longer time would be immensely helpful to help navigate like resources and put together these really meaningful projects. For mentorship, having seniors is a really fun experience. You get to kind of follow them into this journey as they transition into young adulthood. Having them for just a semester would like personally break my heart. So I'm glad that I get to pilot this year-long course, so I get to have them the entire year. It's just helpful when we think of like college entrance essays, or like we've had good conversations about resumes, and there's just a lot of life changes that it's helpful to have a teacher that you've known for 2 years and you have that relationship with. The biggest focal point, though, as to why we want to get this extended out is really looking at that piece of community service. The goal with civics is to not only have students go out and get involved in the community, but really model for them and structure for them what it's like to stay involved in the community. A really great example is I know that Erica and Trig do a lot of like different canned food drives and a lot of clothing drives. At Glencoe, we've taken over the clothing closet. And so we've been trying to navigate that as a group, which I think has been a good learning experience for the students. We've gotten to talk about like how we update our washer and dryer, and the students have had to learn about grant writing and like how do we start to coordinate these resources. So having that extended time, I think, would really benefit students in getting them more engaged in the community. I think to another kind of last focal point when I was thinking of benefits for this being a year-long course, I think that what this program really has given students, and hopefully will give them by the end of the year, is a structured opportunity to kind of get them involved in more community action. I think that a lot of students getting involved and knowing like how they can make a difference in their community is really impactful and a great skill to give them before they go off into college. So that would be kind of, those three things would be why we would look to move this to a year-long class. So that's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lisa. Next up, we have Fire Science with Rhea Duncan.
Can you hear me okay? Okay, all right. Thanks for having me, everybody. I'm Rhea Duncan, and I am the fire science teacher at Liberty High School. I am introducing I'm trying to introduce a new course. Currently, and for the past many years, the fire science has been hosted at Liberty High School. They've had Fire Science 1 and Fire Science 2, which has traditionally only served juniors and seniors. So juniors being the Fire Science 1 class and seniors being the Fire Science 2. This is my first year there, and as I've been kind of getting started with this and looking at other options to make it a little bit more comprehensive and line up really with the Oregon kind of rubric on the study quality rubric for CTE programs. We are really missing the intro class to really make it a full-fledged pathway class. And so my experience so far this year, what I'm seeing is we have some kids that thought they knew what fire science was, and they're taking Fire Science 1, but it's a year-long course. And they're kind of realizing maybe this isn't what they want to do, but they're kind of stuck. And so they're stuck with me for the rest of the year. And so my proposal is to add in this introduction to fire and emergency services so that they are only with me for a semester. They get a really good baseline understanding of all the different types of careers in the fire service, what it is, what might they be able to pursue further. And then at the end of that semester, we're actually going to take Fire Science 1 and take it from being a full year class to just a semester class. So we're going to pare that down a little bit. So if they want to continue in the Fire Science program and they're really interested in it and engaged with it, they can continue on to Fire Science 1, where we would really start to get into more of the practical skills that the firefighters do. We use the curriculum that is used in the local fire academies. I should say national fire academies. So they are getting the exact curriculum that if they were to enter the fire service, they are already kind of getting that baseline. And then from Fire Science 1, they would obviously go into Fire Science 2 at the senior level. And that class, we work mostly at the Hillsboro Fire Training Center, where we have instruction from our local firefighters from the Hillsboro Fire Department. So they get to do all hands on their senior year with all the different types of skills and practical exercises that our firefighters do on a daily basis. So adding in that introduction, I think is just a huge step into one, reaching, I'm going to bump it down to sophomores. So it's going to reach some of those kids a little bit earlier and maybe kind of pique their interest and give them an opportunity to kind of view it and see what it's about. And then also kind of give them that opportunity to, if it isn't for them, not feel stuck in something that they're not enjoying and be able to take something else and have time in the last 2 years of their high school career to do that. So that's really the basis of adding in that introduction course to just really kind of make it a nice flow from sophomore year to junior year to senior year as their senior capstone class. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ria. And next up, we have Sherry Fisher with Aerospace.
Hi, my name is Sherry Fisher. I'm the aerospace teacher. Our classroom's actually at the airport, which I'm at right now. And my proposal is I would like to change out one of the courses. So currently, students start with Intro to Aerospace, and that is just kind of an overview of the aerospace industry. We have 2 tracks. We have a pilot track and a maintenance track. And the course that I would like to change out comes on the pilot side after applied aerodynamics. So students take applied aerodynamics and then they were going to take pilot human factors. And what we found is I'm part of the program advisory committee for Hillsboro Aero Academy and PCC. And we meet with industry partners. And what came out of those meetings is that they want students coming out of PCC with more pilot human factor training, more crew resource management, which is counterintuitive why we would want to take that out of the high school. And the reason for that is because their high school brains cannot take in the depth of information that's needed for pilot human factors. And it would, if they took it in high school, that means they wouldn't have to take it in college. So we actually want to save that for their college brain, not their high school brain. And instead, I would like to put in the aircraft systems and performance. This is a kind of a natural progression after aerodynamics, and it really prepares them for the system classes that they'd be taking at PCC. Kind of give everyone kind of a level the playing field so that when they go to PCC, the instructors there would not have to do a lot of pre-teaching before they could understand the systems classes. And that's the basis of why I would like to make the change.
Thank you, Sherry. And then finally, our film program proposal from Lori Della Posa.
Hi, I am very excited to bring this to you. I'm Lori Della Posa, and I'm a theater teacher at Glencoe. And the proposal is to enhance the program to make it not only a theater program, but a theater and film program. So right now there are 3 pathways. You can take the acting pathway, the tech theater pathway, and this would be a 3rd pathway, which would be a film pathway. So the idea is to add 2 film courses, one next school year, and then another the following year. And a film one course would be looking at different styles of film, from silent film to Bollywood and everything in between, and have the students emulate that style of film. So maybe take a scene from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and recreate it with all of the editing, etc. And that way they would learn all the skills of film and about film at the same time. And then the second year, they would take the skills that they learned and use it to create original films, from screenplay to pre-production, production, post-production, all by industry standards. So that's the proposal. And then at the end of that second year, there'd be a film festival. We would show the work of the students. Pretty exciting. The reasons for this proposal: most people in theater end up doing film, frankly, because film pays better. And film is a growing, thriving industry. Theater is also a growing, thriving industry. But having both of those things together is a real benefit for students. Also, we could hear more student voices. There are a lot of students who aren't familiar with theater, who are familiar with film. And there's a real chance that we get to hear more stories and have better representation in a film program. Third, the set of skills, from lighting to learning sound to being an actor, etc. Those are marketable skills that you can use a lot of different industries, even if you decide not to go into the art per se. And finally, student interests. When we were shut down for a year, what did we do? We did film. And what I learned was that students were really jazzed about doing film, and that there is a genuine interest in adding this program. So I'm really excited at the idea of offering it, and I thank you for the chance to talk about it.
Travis, before you introduce our CCAC members, I just wanted to do one point of clarity, and Ria, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but just a little confusion about how a semester-long class ends up getting 1.0 credit, and that's because students attend every day. Is that correct? That they attend every day versus on our high school schedule, kids attend their classes every other day in our 1 through 8 periods with 4 periods per day. Am I correct in that?
No, you are not. However, they still attend the block schedule every other day, but it's a double block. So I have them for 2 periods in a row.
Okay, thank you. So every other day, but for 2 periods. So they end up getting a 1.0 worth of learning in a half a year time period.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody. Hey, as we transition to the CCAC portion, I continue to be amazed by the career pathways work that we've done and how it unlocks the secret double lives of our teachers. I can just point out here on the screen, Sherry, I got to know as an ESL teacher, and come to find out she's a pilot. When Lori made her presentation to the CCAC, multiple people said, "You're a math teacher. My student had you for math. You're amazing." And so whether it's like, we find out that our teachers are construction project managers and pilots and film artists. And it's just amazing to me the talents that we see coming through when these courses come through the board. So thank you for sharing your talents with our students. I will move quickly to 2 slides from the CCAC. I'd like to introduce Emily Gothard and Linda Osuna, who are co-chairs of the CCAC this year, and Angela Vargas, who is the vice chair. We work as a team to plan the meetings and to prep for this meeting, along with Mariana Roman, who is in our communications department. She's our tech support and our interpreter for the CCAC. And so thank you for your preparation for tonight. I'll pass it immediately to Angela Vargas, who I think will speak to the first slide from the CCAC.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Angela Vargas. I'm the proud mom of a 7th grader at South Meadows and a senior at Hillsboro High School. I'm first going to share the questions, feedback, and recommendations for Civics and Community Service 2. Upon asking clarifying questions, we learned that in the first course, it supported students in doing the research, planning, and writing. However, the second class was really imperative for children putting their plans and their research to action. And It was unanimously supported. A recommendation that was given, however, was that the standards for the course should include being self-reflective while serving in the community. So ensuring that the students' understanding went beyond helping those that are less fortunate or giving back to the community to gaining a deeper understanding of the greater significance of community service and the underlying systematic issues of social injustice. The next course I'll speak to is fire science. Some questions that we had were, how do all the students access the program if at Liberty? And we learned that there is a shuttle that will shuttle students from other high schools. And they also receive forecasting support so they know it's available to them, even if it's not in their building. We also wondered how far a student can get prior to graduation, high school graduation, in terms of certification. And we learned that they achieve dual credits at PCC and they're ready for the Fire Academy. And then we wondered about fees and if it would be accessible for all students. And we learned that there are no fees. And so students and families would not need to worry about that issue. Thank you.
Hi, I am Emily Gothard, and I'm the co-chair of the committee. I have two children, and my oldest attends the Little Jags preschool at Century High School. The committee expressed enthusiasm and unanimously voted to move forward both the aerospace and film proposals to the board. And I'd like to share some of the questions and feedback the committee expressed regarding the proposals. There were questions regarding supporting gender inclusivity in the aerospace program. The majority of those enrolled now are male, but there are plans to increase recruitment efforts in middle school, which we think is important. There was also a question regarding bilingual instruction. The instructor does speak Spanish and can answer questions in Spanish, though the instruction is in English. The committee asked about the fees for the exams associated with the courses and whether those could be a barrier. There is fundraising for scholarships in partnership with industry, so we're hopeful exam fees will not be a barrier for any student based on those efforts. There was also feedback appreciating that the program is listening to industry and making adjustments to the program curriculum. And there was a question regarding whether students would still have the opportunity to learn about human errors and risks early on, if that might affect their interest in the program. And that content is covered in the intro course, where they look at NTSB accident reports and their causes, most of which are due to human error. There was inquiry regarding whether students who did not enroll in the aerospace program in 9th grade would still have the opportunity to join late, and students could still join the program if they took 2 courses simultaneously. In regard to the film 1 and 2 proposal, the committee offered general feedback about what a fun proposal this was that would offer valuable technical career skills across a variety of professions. The committee inquired regarding the inclusion of cultural films like Bollywood, and were informed that Bollywood was a unit in the course, and films for social change are an important element as well. The committee expressed interest in potentially helping to facilitate partnerships like a film festival with local theater companies. There was interest in whether the course would be available for students at schools other than Glencoe. And while this proposal was currently developed to offer at Glencoe, we were informed that other schools could choose to offer it in the future if approved. That concludes the committee's feedback for the board's consideration of these proposals. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You guys all covered so much information really quickly and efficiently. Much appreciated. We're happy to answer questions as a group from the board or just to hear comments.
Would you like to go first?
I'm super excited about all these programs. I especially would want to attend a film festival from our students and get to see projects like that that are really fun, and thinking about courses that kids are excited to come to school to do, and just diversifying more of those fields. Like you mentioned, aerospace, and having more women and girls be interested in it. And I think it goes, I know we're starting at the middle school to raise awareness, but I think it starts really early to make kids aware that anything is a possibility, and see how they can get involved. But just great kudos to all the teachers and your double lives that you lead, and all the secret talents that you bring to us. Thank you so much for all your work on this.
Kaylee, looks like you have your hand up.
Yes, I am so excited. I just wanted to just say that this is so amazing and seeing all the different opportunities that are now coming up and um, that there is now more choices for students, especially for those students who grow up in the Hillsborough School District and as the eighth grader, maybe you always dreamed about being a pilot and maybe you always dreamed about you know being a director or having to do something with theater. And I just think that we are doing such an amazing job with providing representation for younger students, especially for them to be like I want to be like them, and just being able to see themselves there and have that clear pathway to go to where they want to be. And I just think that this is also amazing. And I know that the theater and film is going to be so amazing. I am part of the Spartan TV at Hill High, and it was very difficult for them to start up and for it to start up because we didn't have that guidance. And now that we have that guidance, we have connections with Univision producers, and just we get to do a lot more. And I know that students will really enjoy that class and having that guidance from a teacher since early in your high school education, and then later going into film and production and theater or anything related to that is just going to be so amazing. And I am so excited to see all the students who join those classes.
Thank you. Anybody here want to we can bounce back and forth or just Michelle, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'd like to echo Kaylee's excitement. I feel like for all four of these programs, they're especially exciting, and I am glad that we are, expanding our college and career pathways, and especially like utilizing the local industries and the, local partnerships and stuff like that. I feel like, for example, like fire science and aerospace, I like how like you're incorporating, schools across the district and providing a lot of opportunities. And then so I would especially would like to like talk on support of like the civics and community service pathway, because I'm in it. Because like, as a freshman, Glencoe is a extremely diverse and civically involved school. And I know that like the Hillsboro School District has an extremely involved and civically involved and passionate, student body. And I think that, freshman year, this program didn't exist. And we have a lot of people that want to go into civics and who want to go into community. And I think that having this program here, like, helps anchor that path, because a lot of people that wanted to follow, civics and community, they had to divert to other pathways. And I think that, just opening more pathways in general allows students to really dig deeper into what they really care about. And especially with, changing it from a semester to a year, the class is civics and community service. Having a whole year really builds that sense of community and closeness within the class. And so, yeah, I feel like I have more to say on that, but I think that's it for now.
Okay, Sam?
Yeah, I also have to echo what my peers have said up here, and I have to admit very quickly, I'm a little bit biased in this presentation today because I take a class both from Miss Pearson and from Miss Dalaposen, but I'm really, really excited to see that the Hillsboro School District is expanding their options in terms of college and career pathways. I remember when I was a freshman and first kind of finding out about all of these, I felt kind of limited by the options that were available because I didn't necessarily see myself in what was being offered. And I'm glad to see that we are diversifying, because I remember thinking when I was a freshman, well, where's the pathway for somebody who wants to go into civics? It now exists, and seeing these things expanded means that more people are going to feel comfortable taking advantage of the college and career pathway options we offer. I'm also really encouraged by the focus that I heard tonight on how we can expand the diversity of people these programs appeal to, because I think a danger when you're trying to get people into programs like this is always the image of stereotyping of like, well, I don't want to take that class because, I can't. I'm not going to be a pilot because I'm a woman, so I shouldn't bother taking the class. So I'm really encouraged by the fact that that's a focus. I'd like to, I have my thing that I harp on every time I talk about something up here, and that is communication, 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 communication. How are you going to express these pathways to students? I think that that's going to have to be a really big focus, because that idea of bringing in more diversity isn't necessarily going to end up existing in the reality of who enrolls in these classes unless we're being very careful about making sure that everyone hears about them. So I'm really, really excited and feeling full of promise about these. And I'm just going to keep talking about that every chance I get, because we need to be sure that people know about the good work that's happening in this building. And thank you to everyone who presented tonight, all the teachers, all the CCAC members. It was super nice. Highlight of my evening so far.
Thank you. Nancy, you have something to add?
Yes, I do. First of all, I wanted to say to the teachers who are doing the civic and community service class, that is so awesome. Thank you very much for everything that you're doing. I am also going to recommend that you reach out to the Washington County Civic Leadership Academy and connect with them, as there is lots of momentum that you all can tap into and that they can help you with. That is a big body of adult individuals who are trying to do the very same things that you're doing at that level, and it would be awesome. I'm a graduate of that academy, and I'm sure they would be happy to work with you. The second thing I want to say is the idea that we have all these people we have teachers with, I'm going to call them superpowers. I love it. This is so awesome. And I have to tell you that I'm thrilled to death with the aerospace industry. I spent 8 years of my professional life at GE Aircraft Engines, and I have actually put together and pulled apart a CF-56 engine. And there is nothing more exciting than to get your hands in the gut of an engine and to pull it apart. So I am looking forward to seeing more people, and I guarantee you that when you get to the upper echelons and you start going to college, you'll understand that there are a lot more women who are involved in that industry than you think, but there is always room for more. So thank you to all of the teachers. It's very exciting, and I'm with Seth. This was definitely the highlight of the evening. Thank you so much.
Any of my other colleagues?
Not that I don't like fire science.
Yes, it's just, fire science feels like it's been a bedrock of Liberty for a very long time. And it's great to see that it continues to evolve and find better ways to meet the needs of our students. I'm curious, are there any components of the civic and community class that would satisfy some of the new legislative requirements that we're going to be required to implement fairly soon? Or is it just sort of a completely different thing?
Mark, can you say more about what we're going to be required to do based on legislation?
Yeah, I think it was Senate Bill 702 that's going to require every student to have a semester of civics. And so I believe when I asked about it during the legislative session, that we already had some classes that basically met those requirements, like AP US history and whatnot. So I'm just wondering if any of the activities in the new class dovetail with any of that, or is it just sort of a separate thing?
It is a separate thing. You are correct that we already offer kind of the course that most of our students take that meet that requirement is people in politics. They take that either as 11th graders or 12th graders. And then there are some substitutes, for instance, and like AP and IB options for that. And right now, the civic and community service class kind of falls into that applied arts category, which is what we do, the credit that we award for most of our career pathway programs. So it would probably stay in that category because the students who are in civic and community service also take people in politics or one of the approved substitutes.
My last question is a very nerdy one. And so I have a couple of degrees in film, and I basically taught this class as an adjunct in a couple of different universities. So just curious, are we using the term film sort of colloquially to represent visual arts? Like, So I mean, is that TV, video, digital animation, or are we talking about actually shooting on 8mm, 16mm film?
We are going to shoot DSLR cameras, so it'll be all digital, which is incredibly affordable and makes it possible, frankly. And then use digital editing on Premiere Pro. So that's what the tools are for a lot of filmmakers now. But you're right, it's not a physical film, it is a digital film, but that's what makes it accessible to us as well.
I've got a guest speaker I'd like to suggest for your course.
Yeah. Adjunct professor. There you go.
I did work in TV for about 12 years. So, whole different career. Thank you.
Just a shout out to our CCAC committee. I think it's the first time that they presented this, our new.
Oh, yeah.
committee. So
Nice.
thank you so much for your work.
So she said, thank you to the CCAC folks for presenting tonight. I think it's your first time in front of us this year with the new committee, so thank you.
Thank you.
I think Monique had something to add as well.
Just a quick question for the fire and emergency services course. Looking at the outline, so what aspect of the emergency services are covered in here? Is it mainly a focus on fire?
So it's split up into 3 categories. So we do structure firefighting, which is what most of us know as the Hillsboro Fire Department, the big red trucks. And then emergency services, which we're moving into next month, is paramedic EMT, more on the ambulance service. And then the last portion is wildland fire. So the forest firefighters, which is where they will get one of their certifications and be job ready when they graduate. So when they get into the senior year, the majority of the hands-on practical skills, because our industry partner is the Hillsboro Fire Department, is more structure related. COVID has kind of thrown in, we can't do the ride-alongs anymore and some of those job shadows that we used to at this time. So it's a little bit more fire intensive senior year, just because that's who our industry partner is. But there is the EMT component and the paramedic component. They'll get their CPR and first aid certification as well. And then that, like I said, the wildland portion is the last part of the class.
Okay, and then one more clarification. So during this, with the slide, it said intro to fire services, and that was a half-year term, a half-year class as an intro, and I saw that for 10th graders. And then fire science 1, you're seeking to get that to be a half-year course as well, also for 10th graders. Is that correct?
No, so the only class that's going to be for sophomore level is going to be the intro class. And then let's say, for example, a student, for whatever reason, didn't know they wanted to do fire, decided after their sophomore year, if they were a junior, they would still have that chance to take that intro class before they take the Fire Science 1 class. So they would still be able to take that pathway, even if they chose to do so late. My intention is to have it be majority sophomores to introduce them at an earlier stage. But if we need to have them take it as juniors, that will be available to them as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thank you folks very much for presenting. Again, one of the highlights of our year usually. So thanks for all the hard work you guys do to bring new opportunities to our students. Our next item is a preview of next year's school calendar. I think Kama's leading us through that, and it's available in your packet.
Thanks, Mark. Good evening, everyone. So I feel like I have just recently talked about the calendar, but I'm back to talk about the calendar for the 22-23 school year. And I think one of the things that I want us to be anchored in is, as we think about our calendar and drafting our first reading this time of year, I think it's important. I think Seth talked about the communication pieces and consistency for our community. And as we draft that calendar each year and look at that, we also kind of anchor ourselves back at when is the school year going to start and when it's going to end. And we look at the 174 student contact days to meet seat requirements by the Oregon Department of Education. We also look at additionally at the 191 license contract days so that we can build a calendar that creates that consistent communication for our community. And so one of the things that we have done as a part of that is that we will be starting the school year after Labor Day. And this has been something that has been a part of feedback that we have received from different stakeholders in the past. And so we are continuing that consistency of starting after Labor Day. And then as we have developed drafts, and right now you see one draft before you, I do want to let you know that there were things that happened behind the scenes that took place in regards to developing this draft and getting feedback from various stakeholders so that we can bring this proposal forward for the first reading. So I'd like to point out some things, and I wish I could use my color-coded methods of human resources to showcase things that are new, things that are an adjustment, and things that are the same. And so if you look at things that are new for things, ideas that we're proposing for this next year, the first bullet around the new licensed staff in service will be new this year. We will be moving it to Monday through Wednesday, August 22nd through the 24th versus the end of the week. We've received feedback from our licensed staff, our new teachers and educators, that they would like to have those 3 first days and then have a little break and then be able to go into their licensed in service the following week. So that's something that we've taken into account. Another thing that is a new piece is this year, for 2023, the New Year's Day will be observed federally on Monday, January 2nd, 2023. So that is a holiday that we do have to recognize, and that would be would also have an impact on our winter break. And so that makes our winter break start Wednesday, December 21st to Tuesday, January 3rd of the following week. And this is not uncommon when we have a holiday that follows on a Monday like this and we observe it, we have to make adjustments. And that is something that we have to take into account. And another thing that is new is that we will be observing Juneteenth as a licensed non-contract day on Monday, June 19th, 2023. And we're excited to bring forward that new holiday into our calendar. But one of the things as we build that calendar is we think about the needs of our community, whether it's the students, whether it's our staff, whether it's families. And so if we are starting on September 6th with our family connections, and so that would be an adjustment. This last year we had 2 days. We will be going to 1 day of family connections on Tuesday, the 6th, which allows us to have that continued opportunity to build connections with students and families. And then we elicited feedback from our staff that said we would like to be able to start our grades 1 through 6, 7, and 9 on Wednesday, the 7th, which allows our middle schoolers and our new freshmen opportunity, 9th graders, opportunity to be at school in a new setting and be supported by their colleagues at that level. And then what happens after that is we'll have our September 8th start for kindergarten, grade 8, and then 10 through 12. And this has been something that we have done in the past, and we're just bringing that adjustment back into this calendar proposal. And then another piece that is just a slight adjustment is November 11th, Friday, is Veterans Day, which is a day that we recognize. And we want to make sure that we're recognizing that. And another adjustment is, and we're continuing on, as somewhat the same, is our staff development and family conferences. We received a lot of positive feedback this year that we held it during the week of Thanksgiving break. So we will have our staff development and then family conferences the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of November. And then we'll go into our Thanksgiving break. So with some of those adjustments in place, and spring break is going to be about last week of March. And what then takes us to the last part of the school year. We think about when do we end the school year with those number of days that we need to. And we determined that it would be best for our families and for our staff and community members to end school on Thursday, June 15th. And then the next Friday would be the last day for licensed staff for the contract on the 16th. So those are kind of a summary of everything that is in that calendar. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to ask me any questions about this time during this first reading, because it'll come back in February for when the board will vote on approving this, or if we have feedback at that time as well. So I will open it up for questions.
Anyone have questions for Kana? Lisa?
I got a question. Connell, we might not know this information offhand, so maybe for a board update if it's possible to get, but I'm curious about the last time there was that late New Year holiday where we had a longer New Year's week in January and then had like a Monday, Tuesday sort of thing early in what would traditionally be winter break, and like attendance numbers for those days historically, to try and figure out if that's, I don't want to say the wrong words, but I'd like to know the attendance numbers for those couple days, you know, and see if there are maybe some other ways to finagle things. Because as a parent, those days look really challenging for my third and sixth grader. But of course, we'll be at school if there's school. Of course, it feels weird. I'm gonna be honest, but I'd like to see the numbers on that, if possible, if we have them somewhere.
Lisa, thanks for your question, and I will certainly look into that. I think one of the drafts that we did look at is ending the year on June 16th with students, which makes Monday the 19th, the federal or the holiday, and then teachers would come back on the 20th. So we were trying to look at some other things, or I think forward looking. I have heard feedback from folks in, what is the appetite to start earlier than before Labor Day. But at this time, I think one of the things that we talked about that I addressed before is the consistency of starting after Labor Day is something that has been a value of our community at this time. So I will certainly look into creating a board update on that one. Thank you.
Just a question, Kana, too. Was there an evaluation of that winter break? It seems like it starts halfway at the tail end of the week, and then it ends at the beginning of, the other week in January. Was there consideration about making it whole and doing the last week of December and then the first week of January so that it's like a whole week? Or how did we arrive at that decision that that's the best?
Yeah, I appreciate your question, Erica. I think we were trying to look at, we did look at creating that 2 contiguous weeks option that we've typically had with, like we had this year. But I think, again, the challenge comes with that January 2nd federal holiday and the way that has landed. And so just trying to look at the way that we can address the whole number of days of 191-day contract, 174 days. And so I think it's, also when school starts becomes a component that we also have to address when we're looking at these things. So I hope I'm answering your question.
But this isn't the first time in history that New Year's Day fell on a Sunday. So in the past, have we started winter break on the 26th and gone through January 6th, or have we always split it up like this?
Sorry, Mark. We've usually split it up more in a contiguous manner so that we haven't started so late to have winter break so late, just because for our families and such. So that's something that we haven't, when I look back at former calendars, we have not gone that late to start winter break that you're suggesting, like on December 26th.
So in December 26th, but yeah, so the last time New Year's Day was on a Sunday, we split it up like this?
Not exactly. I think part of it also is the piece around Juneteenth as well, and when Labor Day falls. So we haven't done this exactly, but we have added additional days, maybe around when New Year's falls typically.
So Kona, this is Nancy. I think what you may be hearing is we were hoping for a little bit more consistency with that winter break. It's interesting. I know you're doing the best that you can under the parameters that we've had in the past, and I'm wondering, is there an opportunity for us to do something new, bold, different, or no?
I think to achieve the 2 weeks continuous that you're looking for, not to go midweek, you would have to start on the 26th, which means our last day of school would be the 23rd. And I think the question would be, for those people that travel during the holidays, is getting out on the 23rd enough time to accomplish that travel or not? So I think that's where the rub is that we're trying to be mindful that some people do leave town, not everybody, but some people do leave town, and giving time for that to occur. We also know that we've heard a lot of positive feedback over the years around having some time prior to the holiday to accomplish something for those people that are in the classroom or in schools, to accomplish some things prior to the holiday. So if your recommendation is that we go back and look at options that would keep the 2 weeks confined within a standard week, but we can do that, but there will be some trade-offs that go with that.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that I would like to learn more about is, for me, thinking about it, it's the same amount of days. And I'm wondering, why does it push our last day of school out if it's the same amount of days? Why would that push it out?
I think it's probably more the travel, give people, so.
No, like if it's still the same amount of days, we're just moving the 3 from the 21st, 22nd, 23rd to the end of that week of January, why does that still push our end of the school year out? Is it just the cutoff of the quarter semester, or what's the reason that it would cause us to end our school year later? So that's, and we can follow up with, you can also follow up with that information, but I think that question about like looking back and maybe even talking to our unions about the different days and saying like, maybe for us, we think like this is, for me, it would think like 2 whole weeks makes sense, because when you're planning, it's a lot easier for families, but maybe also for our staff, if they do want the day before, those days before, because it's easier for them as well. I guess I just kind of want to make sure that we're coming up with the best solution, keeping everyone in mind.
Yes, to me, it feels weird to start winter break on Wednesday.
Yeah.
But if there's a good reason for it, I can get on board. It just feels weird. Right? There's a compelling reason to do so.
Yeah, it just seems there's a lot of arbitrary factors that we're including. Like, we think people are traveling. We think that they want to travel before the 23rd. And that's a pretty bold presumption. Nothing against the presumption that we're making, and I know this is just a first draft, but there are countries and school districts that will choose those 2 full periods, and they're the same every year, and everybody can depend on that every year. And this just kind of slides to some degree. I don't know.
I really.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Sorry, I really appreciate the dialogue and I appreciate the conversation around this. I think you're seeing what I too grappled with, along with the various stakeholders that I had, elicit feedback from. And I think, in talking with some of our administrators who work with other folks across the country, this is something not only that we in Hillsboro are, trying to work through, but other districts across the country are looking at this as well in the same way, which they had to make adjustments to their calendar as well. And I think part of it is, looking at your student contact days, you're looking at your licensed contract days as well, and trying to play those pieces, because we did put the calendar, I did, put a calendar draft proposal that was 2 contiguous weeks that would have started on the 19th. But we would have had to go on into the 2nd as a federal holiday. I even looked into like, do we have to participate and recognize that federal holiday? And we do. I sought legal counsel on that. And I think, the piece that I've seen that other districts and other calendars across our country is that, it's dependent on their license contract days. It's dependent on their student contact time. And so I know that there are some other calendars where, folks are coming back on Tuesday, the 20th to finish out their responsibilities. And I think, I always like to say we can do anything, but we can't do everything when it comes to the calendar. So I really do appreciate the dialogue, and I appreciate the questions that you're asking around this.
So we went for 2 contiguous weeks the other way. What you're saying is we went for the 19th, we lose a contract day because of the 2nd.
Yes.
So, okay. Beth went back and looked at, Beth, can you chime in 2016, 2017, what you found when we last had it on a Sunday?
Yeah, sure. That year we had 2 full weeks off in December, the week of the 19th and the week of the 26th. And then we also had Monday, the 1st off. But I think like Conna said, Juneteenth being that extra paid holiday is kind of throwing things off a little bit. So she had to get creative. We also, the very next year, we went all the way till Friday, the 21st, and then had basically the next 2 weeks off, which took us through that whole first week of January because of the way things were falling. So we've certainly tried different ways of managing, but yeah, I mean, not that people's travel plans are the be all end all, but I tend to agree with Mike that pushing it that close to what a lot of people celebrate in Christmas is probably just a difficult position for us to take. Not impossible, but difficult.
If I could recommend that we let us take another look at this. So we received your feedback. I would suggest we look at what can we do to get the 2 weeks that are out of school would be the 19th and the 26th, those weeks, as opposed to push it back into January, because I would guess that we will be one of the few school districts that would be out the entire week, that first week. And childcare for our own teaching staff is an issue because we live regionally. So let us take a look at what that would mean. That would mean that there would be 11 days out because we would need to be out that Monday. And what it's going to take, what it's going to mean, what's going to be the domino effect.
Yeah, do we have an opportunity to visit this in the work session before we vote on it?
Sure.
All right, okay. So you can come back with us with some more information.
Certainly.
All right.
Yeah, I think that even looking at what other districts neighboring, because many of our staff maybe work here and their kids go to their district or vice versa.
So we attempted to do that. We're a little earlier than most people in this conversation. And so, I mean, we do that every year. We're a little earlier this year.
So they're all looking at us right now?
They clearly won't be having us work until the 20th.
Yes.
And let us take a look and see what that domino effect is.
All right. Thank you for your feedback and your our discussion today.
Our next item is Michelle and the financial report.
Thank you, Mark. I hope you guys have had a chance to look at the financial report, our monthly narrative, to see what's going on in our business office and the projects that we focused on. Also wanted to note there the dedication and support of our staff listening sessions. Mike has encouraged us all to be a part of those so that we all get a better understanding of what the experience is in our schools, and the business office is involved with that as well. Just wanted you to note that. Also, you may notice an uptick in incidents, and that is kind of correlates with just being back in person. in schools with students. We only go back in that table as far as 1920, so you may notice that as well. I'm also happy to answer any questions you might have about the financial cash flow report that includes our quarterly interest earnings through the second quarter of our fiscal year.
Anybody have any questions for Michelle? That keeps you and your team. All right, as we often do, I think first time under me being the chair, we are going to recess the board meeting, and we will convene a meeting of the local contract review board. All right. Our first item is the findings of fact for the domestic water system. Do we still have Adam, or is this going to be Casey? Oh, we do still have Adam. How about that?
I'm here. Yeah. Yes. I'm asking the board tonight to approve our findings of fact that will allow us to use a design build contracting method rather than design bid build. Basically, this project at Harefield in the locker room down there is basically a plumbing project. It's not going to require a lot of engineering or design work from an architect, but we will need the expertise of a plumber. So what we're asking for is to be able to directly hire the plumber and bypass the traditional bid method of selecting that vendor. So it will save us time. It will save us money. Happy to answer any questions about
We've done this on a couple of other bond projects, right?
The one other one that I found in my records was at the Pathway Center, and that was because we were switching from a modular building to a stick-built building, and we were under some serious budget and time constraints. So again, this method saved us about $700,000 in that case.
Any questions for Adam? Nancy?
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, okay.
I move that the board of directors, acting in the capacity of the local contract review board, review and approve the findings of fact supporting the use of the design build method for the domestic water pipe replacement project at Harefield.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Director Thomas and seconded by Director Lopez that the board of directors acting in the capacity of the local contract review board review and approve the findings of fact supporting the use of the design build method for the domestic water pipe replacement project at Harefield. Is there any further discussion? There's quite a bit of information in your board packet, which I'm sure you've all already looked at. So just, thanks everybody for looking through all this. I guess roll call vote.
Lisa Allen.
Aye.
Erica Lopez.
Aye.
Yadira Martinez.
Aye.
Nancy Thomas. Aye. Tony Ford.
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Aye. All right, that motion passes unanimously. Our next thing for local contract to review is, well, I think George, you're taking the lead on, right?
Yeah. So this is the purchase renewal of our licensing for Google Voice and G Suite for Education licensing that we started purchasing at the beginning of the pandemic. We're renewing that purchase, and due to some restrictions of how Google requires you purchase that, you can only have one vendor in your domain, and that Amplified IT is the only Google Voice education reseller, and so we have to buy both products from them. And so this is why it's being done as a sole source to review that yearly licensing.
Any questions for Jordan or Michelle? I'd like to say how I appreciate how we've implemented technology so that we're all struggling with work at home, when we're at work, when we're not at work. So for a lot of people, I think working from home can end up being living at work, and I don't love the idea of any of our teaching staff do that, but I do like how we've implemented technology so that they can use the device they happen to have with them at school or whatever to communicate with parents without sort of exposing their own phone number, use the system to, so I appreciate that we're providing that opportunity. People don't have to worry about switching back and forth with devices and stuff through this technology.
I move that the Board of Directors, acting in the capacity of the local contract review board, approve the sole source procurement and exemption of competitive bidding and authorize the purchase of Google Voice and G Suite for education enterprise licenses from Amplified IT.
I second.
Director Ward beat you to it. I move that the board of director, so it's been moved in by Director Lopez and seconded by Director Ward that the board of directors, acting in the capacity of the local contract review board, approve the sole source procurement and exemptions from competitive bidding and authorize the purchase of Google Voice and G Suite for educational enterprise licenses from Amplified IT. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Lisa Allen,
Aye.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas,
Aye.
Monique Ward,
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, motion carries unanimously. We did not have anyone sign up to speak to the local contract review board, so we will recess the local contract review board and we will reconvene the board meeting, regular board meeting for Hillsboro School District 1J. And we are on to our action items. The first one regarding surplus equipment is Michelle.
Thank you, Chair Watson. You guys have viewed in your packet, we have a situation page that describes a surplus for 2 pianos that have been in the district that have not been able to be used due to the condition they're in. And so there's a request to put forward to have them both declared as surplus and then donated to someone that could make better use of them, whether it's a refurbishing organization or another nonprofit in the community.
Anybody have any questions for Michelle? Yes, Monique.
Michelle, so I know in the past when we've had these surplus and donations that you had mentioned, something to the effect about you have to be careful because of how they were funded to begin with, how you acquired them to begin with certain funds, whether it was state or federal or such. Is that all clear?
Yes, that's cleared in these cases. In fact, I think at least, I believe that the baby grand was originally a donation that was just unable to be used due to the condition it was in. So we sometimes do inherit donations like that we don't necessarily have the opportunity to fully assess their usability before we receive them. So in this case, unfortunately, the donation couldn't be used.
Thank you.
A good reminder for me is my piano is sitting in a warehouse since my fire, and I think I need to check and make sure that that warehouse is climate controlled. I'm pretty sure it is, but also like, it's a good reminder for me to check in on that. Yeah, I kind of want that piano back. All right. Any other questions for Michelle?
Like to make a motion?
All right.
I move that the board of directors declare the 2 instruments surplus and authorize donation to a refurbishing specialist or community organization, although it's not written, or John Paul, whichever is appropriate.
Second.
Been moved by Director Thomas and seconded by Director Lopez that the board of directors declare the 2 instruments surplus and authorize the donation to a refurbishing specialist or community organization. Is there any further discussion? Take a roll call vote.
Lisa Allen,
Aye.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas,
Aye.
Monique Ward, Mark Watson.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. All right. Next up is the approval of a land sale in South Hillsboro with Adam.
Yes, good evening again. This is the land sale that we discussed earlier in executive session. This will sell 10.67 acres in the Newlands portion of the South Hillsboro development.
Somebody like to make a motion?
I move that the board of directors approve the terms of the purchase and sale agreement between GLC South Hillsboro LLC and the Hillsboro School District to sell 10.67 acres at a price of $340,000 per, is that right? Acre. Per care, is that right? Per acre, yes, for a total purchase price of $3,627,800. Thank you. Second.
It's been moved by Director Thomas and seconded by Director Ward that the board of directors approve the terms of the purchase and sale agreement between GLC South Hillsboro LLC and the Hillsboro School District to sell 10.67 acres at a price of $340,000 per acre for a total purchase price of $3,627,800. Have a roll call vote. Is there any discussion?
Lisa Allen,
Aye.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas,
Aye.
Monique Ward, Mark Watson.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Adam, it's like the
Yes.
whole night, huh? All right.
Yeah. Chair Watson, I am going to need your signature on that purchase and sale agreement. So if you could make sure and get that signed so I can pick it up and get it over to the escrow agent tomorrow morning, that would be great. The next item on the agenda is the awarding of the replacement of single pane windows at Groner Elementary, West Union Elementary, and North Plains Elementary schools. This is one of the projects that we had hoped to be able to do as part of our bond project, and this will eliminate all of the remaining single pane windows.
But we cannot hear you.
Maybe
Can you hear me?
Adam, move your camera briefly. We're having trouble hearing you.
All right.
And now come back in.
Is that better?
Yep.
Yes.
Is that better? Okay, good.
We do see the bids on the, in our packet.
Yes.
Okay, so this is to replace the single pane windows with insulated windows at Groner Elementary, West Union Elementary, and North Plains Elementary schools. This is a project that we had hoped to be able to accomplish as part of our bond, and we are. This will get rid of all the remaining single pane window buildings in the district. So yeah, this is a good thing. We're very excited to be able to accomplish this, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hi, Adam, it's Monique, and I was wondering for North Plains and for Groner, I saw on the drawings that there are some windows not being replaced. Is that because they've already been replaced, or what's the story with that?
Yes, that we have some insulated windows there and some single pane. So we're replacing this. We're swapping out the single pane windows for insulated.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mhm.
I also just had another question, Adam. Just looking at the bid numbers and how the numbers are coming in pretty close, is this maybe just showing, I know that there was issues with like supply chain before on some materials. So are we seeing this like competitive pricing due to that kind of coming back to normal?
This was more than we had expected to pay for this project. And it is a supply chain issue. Luckily, it's a $2 million project and not a $30 million project like our new school. So once again, I'm very thankful that we're towards the tail end of our bond. I'm hearing horror stories from my compatriots out there who are in the process of bidding big jobs, and it's kind of scary out there right now. So yes, we have seen some fairly significant price increases, but our budget is solid on this one.
Is this work that would be done this summer?
Yes.
If you get all the parts, right?
Yes, but we will. Pretty confident.
Any other questions for Adam?
No, I'd like to make a motion.
All right.
I move that the board of directors award the contract for the single pane window replacement at Groner, West Union, and North Plains Elementary Schools to 5-Star Builders in the amount of $2,199,725.20.
Second.
Been moved by Director Thomas and seconded by Director Lopez that the board of directors award the contract for single pane window replacement at Groner Elementary, West Union Elementary, and North Plains Elementary Schools to 5-Star Builders in the amount of $2,199,725.20. Is there any discussion? I would like to note that I'm pretty sure 5-Star Builders is a repeat vendor for us, right?
Oh, many times, yes. In fact, they've been out at North Plains for 3 different projects now. So yes, they're very familiar with our schools and have done a lot of great work for us over the course of this bond.
Yeah, and I see some of the other names too. So I am appreciative of the fact that we have vendors who are still continuing to look forward to working with us.
Yes.
Any further discussion? We have a roll call vote.
Lisa Allen,
Aye.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas,
Aye.
Monique Ward, Mark Watson.
Aye. All right, motion passes unanimously.
Chair Watson,
Sure.
before I jump off, I just want to make sure I need your signature on that purchase and sale agreement. I wasn't sure if that made it through last time.
I think your video must have frozen. It's already signed.
It's done.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Is that like an indication of how forgetful he thinks I am?
I think so.
No, I think they have to get that order in.
He's on
Is
it.
it consistent?
Yeah.
All right, our next item is the purchase of some school buses. Michelle, you're covering that one?
Yes, thank you, Chair Watson. This is an annual approval that we come forward to the board with because of the amount of the purchase agreement. Because buses, we have to order them and have them built and be delivered to us, hopefully by the time school starts, oftentimes not until December. We have to start the process early in the year. So that means late winter, early spring for us. Special shout out to Carol Hatfield, who watches for the best buys we can get on our buses and also does a lot of research in trying to find additional funding sources to offset our costs. So we're bringing forward the ask this year for 12 new vehicles that just moves us forward on our gross polluter replacement schedule. So I'm hoping that the board will approve this tonight so that we can get her orders started.
Questions? Yeah. Nancy?
Michelle, did we manage to get an electric one?
That's in process.
So I can answer that one.
Not
Just
yet.
go ahead.
Is that what-
Mark and I just talked about, we have a grant for 2 different electric buses. There are supply chain issues, and it is probably a year out before those come in.
Okay,
So
so
we're
her
having-
12 are diesel. What? Okay, understood.
Yeah, there's actually, say they are all diesel.
It might be
Let me see,
propane.
I have 3 propane buses listed here and
Okay. so
Yeah,
the rest are diesel.
We have several of those.
Okay, thank you.
And when she was Representative Solomon, Representative McLean, and Senator Riley pooled some of their
Yes.
ARPA dollars to buy the electric buses for the district. And it looks like there's about a year lead time on them, so I'm still somewhat optimistic that during my tenure on the board, I'm gonna get to ride an electric school bus at some point.
You'd be the first passenger. How about that?
And I think it's gonna be quite the transition, right? Like it's not gonna be simple. But it includes charging infrastructure, working with PGE, so all the I's and T's are being dotted and crossed in a way that moves us forward, so. All right.
I
Yeah.
move.
Oh,
I move
you have a
that-
question first?
I have a question, sorry.
For Michelle?
Oh, yes, for Michelle. On the propane buses, is this the first batch of propane buses, or do we have propane buses currently?
We currently have them and we have the infrastructure to support them. And Casey's nodding. I know he has more close to the source information on that. But yes, we have purchased them before.
Great, thank you.
I move that the Board of Directors approve the purchase of 12 vehicles for a total estimated cost of $1,808,268.
Second.
Moved by Director Lopez and seconded by Director Ward that the Board of Directors approve the purchase of 12 vehicles for a total estimated cost of $1,808,268. Is there any further discussion? Make a roll call vote.
Lisa Allen,
Aye.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas. Aye. Monique Ward. Aye. Mark Watson.
Aye, motion carried unanimously. I think with the cold temperatures tonight, Carol is probably already in bed because she's gonna have to evaluate at 4 a.m. to figure out, so make sure she finds out that we passed it, right? Somebody passed that along to her. I'm sure she'll find out, but I doubt she's up watching right now because she's gonna be up at 4 a.m. or so, making sure that we can get kids safely to school. Okay, so now we will insert the policies that were removed. So we'll create new action items for policies that were removed and discuss them individually. I think it was sort of language or whatever. So I think the best way to do it is for us to make a motion to approve the policy second, and then discussion. Then that gets us through the. So I can probably start. Should I just do it?
I can do it if you want.
Oh, great. Okay. So we'll start with policy AC.
Yeah.
I move that the Board of Directors,
Go for it, Lisa.
Go for it, Lisa.
I approve that the Board of Directors approve policy AC non-discrimination.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Allen and seconded by Director Lopez that the board approve policy AC regarding
AC non-discrimination.
non-discrimination. Is there any discussion?
So I want to bring this up because, and I've had conversations, emails with superintendent, and my objection to this policy concerns the lack of protections that I see or for the policies, for the rights of teachers, of staff, for whom they may not agree with, and their First Amendment rights. So I just don't see any policy protections for them in this. It seems like there's two protected classes that may conflict.
What are the two protected classes?
So this policy adds the gender identity, and my concern is for people of faith.
My understanding, Rose, can you clarify that the addition of that language has been legislatively required?
Yes.
Anybody else have any further discussion?
So I just want clarity. Are you acknowledging that people of faith are against the legislation, or that the legislation doesn't represent how they feel?
I'm just concerned that with this, and again with another policy that we'll discuss, of people of faith having a complaint drafted against them because they refuse to do X, Y, or Z in regards to this policy of gender identity, or particularly just because this is being added in there. So that's my concern. If we don't have a policy in place or something to address how that's going to happen, if that case happens, if that scenario happens, and someone complains against someone for not using their proper pronoun or whatever the case may be. What's the protection for that individual who has a right for their faith to say, I don't agree with that?
So would your suggestion be to leave the policy as it currently exists and violation of state law? That's what you think we should do?
No, I understand that the state law has said, and that's true for all of these policies. State law has dictated that this is going to be the case. For me, I cannot support that. So you can't, I know that the board is not able to change that and say, oh, we're going to break the law and not do that. But I need to voice and say, I don't support that for this reason. So we can vote on all of them, but that's where I stand.
So that makes sense. And then I guess I would want to acknowledge as a woman of faith that I don't find, perhaps we don't share the exact same faith. What we do have is we have different people of faith. Some that might not agree and some do agree. So we can't just lump all people of faith in the same category. I just wanted to make that statement, but completely acknowledging the right to say exactly what you said.
That looks like you have your hand. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, I just don't want to see people lose their job, over this. That's my concern.
But we can't really do anything if the state is saying we can't, we have to put this language in, so that we don't discriminate against anybody.
Right, and I get that. I acknowledge that, and yes, we have that, and we have to abide by the law. I get that. My concern, like I said, is that people of faith, if you have this complaint comes, what's the process? What's going to happen to that individual in their First Amendment rights? I don't think it's fair for them to say, yeah, we'll discipline you or you can lose your job because they disagree. Does that make sense?
I understand your point of view.
Yeah, just to make sure I understand, you're not looking to propose an alternative. You're just recognizing the situation.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. Seth, looks like you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I think it would be remiss for me to not take this opportunity to speak up as the one openly transgender board member here tonight, about just kind of the message that it sends to other trans youth in our district when policies like this that add a simple protection of non-discrimination are brought up for debate and discussion like this. It makes it feel less safe to go to school, to know that there are people who say that, or to know that there are people in our community who are apparently so concerned about being asked not even to agree or not even to change their personal beliefs, but simply to follow the same protections of non-discrimination that other protected classes get. And the idea that they would find that so harmful, they would be asking us to consider pathways around state law. That does not make me feel like I want to go to school. I know that I'm able to also speak for other people around me when I say that the fact that this comes up again and again is disheartening. And I'd also like to talk about, as I understand it, this particular non-discrimination policy isn't talking about simple things like pronoun usage. It's talking about preventing actual discrimination and harassment when done within our schools. And I don't think that it's unreasonable to ask people to respect other people around them in the building, which is kind of what this does. I don't think that it's a fair reading to believe that this is asking people to change their personal beliefs or change their freedom of speech, but simply to respect other human beings for being human beings. So I don't know. I guess I'm just wanted to say again that I'm disheartened that this ends up being a point of contention, because our district needs to serve all youth, and that includes our transgender, our gender nonconforming youth, our youth of various diverse gender identities. And to have this be a persistent topic of debate is hurtful. Regardless of what our actual policy ends up being, the fact that this ends up being a point of contention, it sends a message, and that message makes me saddened for our fellow youth. So I'd urge us to continue to abide by state law and to understand that this isn't necessarily a challenge of freedom of speech, that this is simply changing our law or changing our regulations around discrimination and harassment to reflect with state law. Thank you.
Michelle, looks like something you want to add?
Yeah, I would like to, echo a lot of what Steph says, and as I think it's important too. I think the most important thing about this whole conversation is that it's not necessarily aimed as like an attack on like the First Amendment rights and such. I think the First Amendment right is extremely important, but rather, like Steph said, like I think it's important to support, trans and LGBTQ youth who are systemically more likely to prone to get depression and, have a various like wide variety of mental health disorders. And I think that even sometimes if a lot of them, speaking to a lot of my peers, and I think a lot of them, just the fact that it's a debate is hurtful. And as in like as if their identity and the way that they know themselves to be is somehow up for debate, and how that is something how they can't be protected by that when they feel as if they're being discriminated against, they're being bullied, they feel as if they aren't being like protected by this, even just if there's this one little measure of accountability. I think it's important that we support students that are, having, yeah.
Kaylee, it looks like something you want to add?
Yeah, I did want to echo what my peers were saying once again, just because this is something that's so important to add, I believe, because students need to know that, they have protection, and especially members of the LGBTQ plus community, because we have seen this year in many districts that they don't have that support. And it's just also concerning to me that, in a district, the Hillsboro School District, like that this is up for debate is like a little, I don't want to say alarming, but it's a little concerning, because we have always supported our students. We have always supported the diversity of our students. We have always acknowledged and appreciated our diversity in our student body. And I think that it's very important to have that protection for our students, and to continue to protect our student body, and to continue to advocate, for equity in all our schools. And I think that it's very important to add that protection in there for students, especially now that we have seen by districts that other districts don't have that protection for students. I think that it makes it even more important for us to continue to pave the path for other districts, and to be the example, and to be the role models that other districts could look at and know that just like we have our students back, they can have their students back, and they can protect their students the way that we protect our students.
Any further discussion? You may not know this, Rose, but so should 4 of us choose to vote no without a proposed alternative, the result would just be the language would remain the same. Is that right? Okay, so just so we're clear on what we're doing, right? So if 4 of us vote no, the result would be the language would stay the same.
Policy would remain as is.
As is, okay.
Non-compliant with the law.
Any further discussion? All right. Oh, sure. Go ahead.
What were you saying, Nancy? Because I didn't.
If it remains the same, then it's not compliant. This is an addition of the law that brings it into compliance.
Right, so, but if 4 of us vote no, we're just choosing to not comply with state law and leave it as is. And I guess at that point, maybe ask for clarification from OSBA about other alternative, I don't know what we would do, but we figure it out. Okay. If we're done, I think it's roll call vote time.
Lisa Allen.
I apologize, point of order. Mark, would you restate the motion after all that discussion about what vote does what, just to be clear about exactly what we're voting on and what an I means?
Sure. We are voting to approve the proposed language changes to policy AC.
Okay, so that's the motion I made. So if I vote yes, I'm saying, yes, I approve of this language.
Correct. If we vote no, then the language would remain the
I got that. I
same.
just wanted to make sure we all knew what we were voting on. Absolutely. I vote aye.
Erica Lopez. Aye. Yadira Martinez.
Aye.
Nancy Thomas. Aye. Monique Ward. Opposed. Mark Watson.
Aye. The motion carries. The next one to be considered is policy GBA, equal employment opportunity. Would somebody like to make a motion to get it started?
Yeah, I move to approve policy GBA, equal employment opportunity.
I second.
Been moved by Director Lopez and seconded by Director Allen that we approve the policy GBA language changes for equal employment opportunity. Is there any discussion?
So my only point on this, and like I said earlier with the other one, it's the same for all of them, so I don't need to discuss any further
Okay.
on that.
Any further discussion?
I am confused. You started out talking about people of faith, and I got that, but I don't get it when it comes to, so I was wondering if you could just kind of enlighten me how this one impacts EEO.
So this is GBA, correct?
Yeah, GBA, equal opportunity, equal employment opportunity.
Okay, and this is the same thing to me in that there's still so many questions around gender dysphoria and all these other things. And I'm wondering what the impact on kids, if we have teachers in these positions doing this, what's the impact on the elementary school kids? Certainly the older kids can understand and grasp that. What's the impact on our elementary kids? And especially, again, from kids who come from homes of faith who may disagree with that.
Any further discussion? Seth, looks like you have something to add.
Yeah, I'm just curious here, Director Ward, is the implication that I'm getting from what you're bringing up here that you're worried that being exposed to transgender teachers might be somehow harmful for children of elementary school age?
I'm just wondering what the impact will be on these kids down the road.
I think the impact will be that the kids will be exposed to a wider array of perspectives, which is, I believe, a goal of our education system, right? To give our kids the tools they need to survive in the adult world, where they will be likewise exposed to a variety of people with a variety of perspectives, whether those be the perspective of a teacher who holds a strong faith or a teacher who happens to identify with a gender other than the ones they were assigned at birth. I think that including a greater diversity of teachers actually benefits a lot of our children. I know that if I had had the opportunity to be exposed to other trans adults when I was a youth, my life might have turned out more differently. I might have realized things about myself sooner, or I might have continued on my path exactly as is. The thing about trans teachers is that trans people are people just like anybody else. They can be qualified to teach. Their gender doesn't even necessarily need to be discussed with a class. Part of learning to exist in society is learning to cooperate with other individuals. So I think that this presumption that somehow the gender identity of a teacher, especially if it differs from, again, the gender they were assigned at birth, is going to impact other, like the growth and development of students, to be perfectly honest, a somewhat offensive assumption. And I simply didn't want that to go unchallenged in the course of the evening. I know that we're trying to move on. I know this is going late, but like, again, as a transgender person, as an advocate for LGBTQ plus rights, I just can't let that kind of assumption go unchallenged in the course of an evening because, you know, like I was saying at the beginning, we want diversity of other types of thought. Why can't this also be included in terms of our diversity? We offer protections for other statuses in our equal employment opportunity thing already, be that your faith, be that your race, be that your sexual orientation, be that your age. This is simply another way of us saying that we're going to hire people who are qualified to do their jobs. And I don't think that's objectionable. And I think that the idea it would be brought up as objectionable is harmful enough to perpetuate that I felt like I had to respond to it over the course of this meeting. So thank you for your time and consideration.
I know the timing is difficult to manage with virtual and in person, but I want to remind each other that we should be respectful and not cut each other off and let us finish our sentences. So just a reminder to try to be respectful to everybody.
I apologize if I cut somebody off. I couldn't quite hear. That's on me.
Kayla, do you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, I would like to add the fact that I know the concern is, you know, for elementary school students down the road, but as an elementary school student, you might not understand or know a lot of things, especially gender identity. And it's not saying that you may not know, but, you know, for some students, they might not know. And I think that representation is very important, especially for students who later in life might identify as a gender that was not assigned to them at birth. And I think that that student might be able to look back and say, you know, now that I know and understand what's going on, and now that I know and understand so much more things, I'm so glad that I had representation growing up. And I'm so glad that I was able to see myself in that teacher now. And I know that I have had so many opportunities within the district to return to my elementary school, to work with my middle school and see my teachers and interact with my teachers again. And just the representation that is there for me as a Latina, like for the LGBTQIA plus community, they might have that same representation going back to their elementary schools and, you know, having a mentor, because it's so difficult to see yourself in, you know, a trusting adult, and having a trusting adult is super important, especially for younger students. So I feel like the identity of the teacher does not matter as much if the teacher is doing their job and is making the students feel safe and comfortable and like they can talk to them. And I think that representation, especially for our LGBTQIA plus communities, is super, super important. And I think that down the road, it will just be more helpful for students.
Any further discussion?
Oh, I think you have a.
Oh, we have somebody waving. Sorry, I didn't see.
Yeah, I don't have a hand raised button, so I do that sometimes. Sorry.
My apologies, Director Allen. I will try to pay more attention to the screen.
It's okay. Last time I just, there was no reason to follow Seth. And so I just put my hand down and it was fine. But I do think that it's important to have an elected board member weigh in. I'm not going to do this every time. We have, you know, several more of these, but I want to be clear that obviously to any reasonable person, it's clear that someone's gender identity should not dictate whether or not they should be considered for employment. I'm a parent, and the person I want teaching my children is the person who is the best teacher, who's most effective in the classroom, and will lead them to the absolute highest levels of academic achievement, period. And as a classroom teacher who works with transgender teachers, I've had the honor to be a substitute in the past, traveling across dozens of buildings. People are good teachers if they're good teachers, and their biology or their identity doesn't really impact that. And so I think the conversation that we're kind of like, we're being driven down an unnecessary path because it's such a non-starter. And so I'm not going to engage with such silliness, but I do just want to give voice to the fact that the whole conversation is pretty ridiculous. And of course, I mean, they're just, let's be reasonable. So.
Again, my apologies. Is there any further discussion? I don't want to cut off any discussion on any topic. All right, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Lisa Allen.
Did you say Lisa Allen? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes, aye.
Erica Lopez.
Aye.
Yadira Martinez.
Aye.
Nancy Thomas.
Aye.
Monique Ward. Opposed. Mark Watson.
Aye. Motion carries. The next policy up for consideration is policy GBA, which regards workplace harassment.
I move that the board approve policy GBEA, workplace harassment.
Second.
All right. Been moved by Director Lopez and seconded by Director Martinez that we approve the new language for policy GBA regarding workplace harassment. During discussion. Seeing no hands, we can just go straight to a roll call vote, please.
Lisa Allen.
Aye.
Erica Lopez.
Aye.
Yadira Martinez.
Aye.
Nancy Thomas.
Aye.
Monique Ward. Opposed. Mark Watson.
Aye. The motion carries. The next policy up for consideration is policy IGBJ.
I move that the board of directors approve policy IGBJ, interscholastic activities.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Lopez and seconded by Director Martinez that we approve the new language for policy IGBJ regarding can't find it.
Interscholastic activities.
Interscholastic activities. All right. Is there any discussion? This one feels different, no?
Yeah, I was wondering about this one, what was the issue with this one? It didn't seem like there was significant. Maybe you could explain.
Sure, yep, on this one, it's the impact to, concerning girl or women's sports. And I know that this is falling under the Title IX, is it? And that's been approved and all of that. Again, I'm just concerned for these kids who work in labor and practice and struggle to be successful and have to compete against biological males.
But just the only change to the policy allows students in a GED program who reside in the district boundaries to participate in interscholastic activities, I think.
Yeah.
So
okay, so that's the only
change that's the only change in language required by law is to allow students with GED in a GED program to.
And who attend private schools, but still.
Yeah, private schools,
Okay.
yeah, students,
my mistake then.
So I believe that's the, Rose, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the only language change, right? So yeah, I think a no vote would leave it the way it is, which probably still, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Oh, Seth, like to add something?
Yeah, again, I just want to speak to the assumption being made in the objection in terms of referring to biological males when we're discussing sports programs. And I know that this is going to likely pass anyways, because it doesn't really concern that at all. But given that this is a public forum, again, I feel like a compelling moral interest to speak up here in terms of when it comes to sports competition, because that's been a topic of interest lately. I just think that the continued focus on hitting, especially in this case of discussion, trans women who wish to compete in athletics, is being villainized or painted as having an unfair advantage contributes to a culture of discrimination against trans women who are likely to face an increased risk of violence, trans women who are likely to be discriminated against in their life, and various trans female people, by painting them as some sort of threat to other students or competitors, when that isn't the case. When in a lot of cases, when you look at the research, the differences in sports aren't that wide as they're previously portrayed when people are trying to scaremonger about this. And I know that isn't the cause of what's being discussed in terms of this actual policy, but again, it's one of those assumptions of debate that I feel I morally can't let go unchallenged in a public forum like this where there is an audience, because I know that it contributes to this culture of harm. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Any further discussion? All right, Rose, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Lisa Allen,
Aye.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas,
Aye.
Monique Ward, aye. Mark Watson.
Aye. Motion carried unanimously. All right. Next policy under consideration is policy IJ regarding the school counseling program.
I move that the board of directors approve policy IJ school counseling program.
Second.
Been moved by Director Lopez and seconded by Director Allen that we approve policy IJ regarding the school counseling program. Is there any discussion?
Yep, yeah, so the reason I brought this one up was because I was looking at the, I can't find it on here.
Page 71 in the packet.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's quite the packet.
Yeah, it's not in the.
And I think the only, page 72 is the only one that has.
Yeah, that's where the change is, that it does include the legally required gender identity change. Yeah, it's on middle of page 72.
Yeah, that was in mine. Okay. And this will be the same as the other one. I made an error.
No, okay.
Yeah, my point that I want to bring up is that with regard to that change.
Okay.
Okay,
So the change of 72.
right.
Is there any other discussion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Excuse me, Lisa Allen,
Aye.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas,
Aye.
Monique Ward,
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right. I believe our last action item for the night is policy KGBB. And I'm hoping I can find a page number.
92.
92, thank you. Erica, maybe?
Okay. I move that the board of directors approve policy KGBB, firearms prohibited.
I second.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Lopez and seconded by Director Ward that we approve.
No,
second. Sorry, seconded by Director Thomas. That we approve policy KGBB. Is there any discussion?
Yes. So I did some research on this and looking at this policy that we want to pass. And I don't know if anyone else has seen, but USCCA put out an analysis report on school shootings covering 1997, I believe, to 2018.
What is
It's called Inside School Shootings, What Have We Learned? And it talked about very specific school shooting cases. And I also did some research to see if we've had any concealed carry people, holders commit mass shootings or school shootings, and I did not find any. What this packet brought out was that shooters seek soft targets. A shooting event usually lasts 5 to 9 minutes. 42% of mass shooters and 70% of school shooters commit suicide on site. And most shooters, when confronted, break off their attack or kill themselves. And I can understand that this is a very emotional issue and people do not want teachers armed. But I would like to submit an idea to you to consider maybe postponing the vote on this, but I know I had sent an email out. I don't think anyone had a chance to respond yet on what security measures, physical measures that we had. I know that we voted on a recent one for adding security vestibules to school. And I don't know how many of the schools have them, or is this the last bunch that has them that will get
Yeah, we're
that?
finishing up the last batch.
The last batch, okay, on there. So that was one thing that was brought out in this analysis, in this report. The whole idea is to buy time for law enforcement to arrive on the scene. And I was wondering also, do we have any programs in school that, like we have earthquake drills or fire drills? Do we have like lockdown drills?
We do. They're required and we participate in them all.
And in that, are kids taught to defend themselves, to try to defend themselves, or they just huddled in a corner? I don't know what the teaching is on that.
Yeah, they're taught to isolate themselves.
Okay. And the reason I bring that up, because that was another thing that was brought up, that especially with the Virginia Tech shooting, that the students who fought back, what if when the shooter went to breach the door, just throwing things at him made him back up, made him go away. And he just went down the hall. And the mindset behind that is they're trying to inflict the most damage as fast as they can before law enforcement gets there. That's their point, right? And the thing that I wanted to bring up was, would you think about an armed teacher program like an armed pilot program, but instead of live rounds, simunition. I don't know if any of you have heard of simunition, but it's a training plastic bullet that law enforcement trains with, that inflicts pain and bruises, but is not lethal, as a method in another form of deterrent. I don't think for us posting a sign outside that says we're a gun-free zone is gonna keep our kids safe. Shooters they don't care. And concealed carry, certainly, these are law-abiding citizens who desire to protect themselves from whatever is going on in their lives or whatever reason that they have, but they're seeking to protect. And I just see that this policy is just criminalizing these individuals. The person who comes through that door does not care about your sign. It doesn't care about the lives in this building, these souls. It cares about inflicting damage. And how do we deter that? Even if you, with no sign, they don't know. Are they armed or are they not armed? So that's just some things that I wanted this body to think about.
Andy, so to be clear, before you mentioned teachers, whether we pass this policy or not will have no impact on teachers. So teachers and students are prohibited from bringing weapons to school, whether we pass this policy or not. So that would be something we would take up separately. So I don't know how much impact that has on the discussion we're having regarding this policy, but just to be clear, you mentioned Army teachers earlier, and then circle back to that program. But those would be completely separate issues that we would bring up unrelated to the issue that we're discussing tonight. Is there any further discussion? Seth, you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak really quickly. I've been talking to people in my school about the board meeting tonight, and I brought up the fact that policy was likely to be an issue of discussion. And the overwhelming response I heard when I was discussing this policy with people was surprise and shock that it wasn't already in effect, which is, I think, something that was mentioned previously when we were first doing a first reading of this policy and talking during a work session. I think that the wider discussion about school safety definitely is a place to be rediscussed. I know it's a issue of a great deal of concern for many students, but I don't see why that discussion of wider policies of school safety or taking another look at perhaps how we're defending things like Director Ward brought up is necessarily directly contradictory to this policy. And I also think that focusing exclusively on planned school shootings when we're talking about policies like this kind of leaves out an element of the debate. What I've been thinking about as I've been hearing this policy isn't is somebody going to be in place to stop an attempted school shooting? It is somebody going to have brought a gun into a school ground that accidentally discharges? Or is somebody going to have the potential to get into a charged argument that escalates because of the presence of a firearm? And I think that failing to consider those points when we're discussing this policy, and that focusing the discretion so narrowly misses the wider point. I think that the overwhelming student perspective that I've heard is that we do not want people to be bringing firearms onto our campuses, regardless of if they have a concealed carry permit or not. I think that there's simply, to be frank, an element of trauma among people of our generation, among students of our generation when it comes to firearms, and knowing for certain that there aren't going to be any present on campuses where they could be mishandled, where we could have incidents, where we could have maybe even attempts to take them, is going to make everybody who goes to school, every student who attends, feel a great deal safer. And so I'd urge you to consider that student perspective when we're discussing this policy.
Any further discussion?
I just wanted to also add that I think there's a lot of different layers when we talk about school safety, and I definitely think that there's the discussion and discourse around safety and protection against school shootings and what we're doing to do that preventative work. And that was a lot of the conversation that we also had when we were talking about school resource officers and that program, and why we wanted to maintain that relationship, why we wanted to ensure that we had a strong partnership so that we would continue in our practice of like safety drills that we do. We partner a lot with HPD to prepare for those scenarios and situations. Knowing what has historically happened is in those cases, you're right, when people fight back, there's a higher chance of survival. And how do we do that with our youth? With also growing up in high school when all that was happening, when it started to happen, and how that has changed. But I think this is really different from that. This is really about just a culture of a gun-free zone for our district. And that's really what I think this policy is aiming to, like, there's no reason to bring one and when kids are at sports activities or on school grounds, and the only people that should be having them are the people that are there to protect authority. That's their job, and they're there to do that. So I just wanted to just understand that there are different layers of complexity when we think about safety and how to protect ourselves. But I also just being also part of like negotiations with our union and hearing all of the work that our teachers are having to do already. I don't think that this is something that they want to consider adding to their role. I think the thing that I hear the most is just how tired they are and how already they have a lot of things to deal with. So I think we just have to like talk about this, I think, in different sections, and safety and security is one of the biggest concerns, and it's being brought up while we're discussing this policy. I think maybe because we have some newer board members, Mike, that we could have a presentation with Casey around what are we doing right now? What is our practice in preparing for those scenarios? How many of those entries or vestibules do we have? Our goal is, of course, to have that barrier in every school. Where are we now? And I think just kind of informing, bringing that information so that you're aware, all of us that are new, what is in the community, what is it that we're doing now, and how are we preparing for those based on the research that has been done and in our partnership with law enforcement.
Any further discussion?
Mark, I just want to remind the public of part of the conversation that we had formally when this was brought up, is the acknowledgement and the strong advocacy of the Second Amendment right to bear arms, which I believe in. But like every other right and constitutional right, there are limitations. And for me, that limitation is the school ground. And I just wanted to say that.
Any other discussion on this topic? Yeah, so I'll be voting yes on this. I'm proud to have worked in Representative Solomon's office and been able to contribute in a tiny way to passing the legislation that makes this possible. And I know that it's not right for every district in Oregon. To Erica's point, it's about the culture, and what the legislature did was gave each locality the ability to decide for themselves. The law was not challenged, or it survived legal challenge. So the constitutionality of this particular law has already been debated. Concealed carry permit holders are already restricted from bringing their weapons into other buildings. And when we talked about this at the work session before we put it on, it seemed like we had broad support of all 7 board members. So we put it on the consent agenda. So yeah, I'm not sure what changed since then, but yeah, I'm glad we've had a chance to an opportunity to discuss this individually. And I think we can remember to be cautious about things we put in the consent agenda going forward. Is there any other? All right, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Lisa Allen,
Aye.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas,
Aye.
Monique Ward, opposed, Mark Watson.
Aye, motion carries. I believe that is the end of our action items. The next item is the policies that are having their first reading today. So the list is there. They are all in your packet. If you have questions regarding any of them individually, the cabinet members' names are there for questions. They would go on to become enacted at the second meeting in February. Since this is their first reading, so those are available. Our next item is HCU and HEA. Melody up there. Jill, would you like to kick us off?
I love it. I got get my, sorry, my speech.
All right.
Melody's ready, so if you start gonna-
Yeah, Melody, if you'd like to go ahead.
We need to get Jill up to the table.
Yeah.
You want right here?
Over to.
Over there.
Are you ready for me?
Yeah, we are, Melody. Go ahead if you're ready.
Okay, I am ready. Well, hello. It's hard to believe that we're reaching the halfway point of the school year. Yay. It's all downhill from here. We have heard a lot from our classified in the recent meetings that we've held. Many are still concerned about COVID. They're confused about when to stay home, when to come to work, and when to test, when not to test, because things change so quickly and so often with the state agencies. But while classified staff are happy to be in the schools teaching and working with our students in person, we still have and continue to have some concerns with exposure. We were at least informed by the district of positive cases in our classes or grade levels. Now those notifications have stopped. We only suspected cases in a class if a student is gone for a few days. That is only a guess on our part too. And now to add to the conversation and confusion and frustration, it is not considered close contact if both parties are wearing a mask. This is very frustrating for those of us that work side by side with some of our most vulnerable and unvaccinated students. I do want to talk a little bit about how some of the classified staff are feeling about respect. I know this is a subject that I've been bringing up, but it's a subject that continues to fill our emails and our phone recordings. I know that the administrators and supervisors are trying. We've even heard some of the school board members mention the classified staff and how they're appreciated when they talk at these meetings. And I want to say thank you for this. The classified staff are here for a reason. Many choose to be classified employees and do not wish to be teachers or administrators. I do have to mention that I have been notified by a few classified employees that they have reached out to the school board members in emails and have not heard back from anyone. They have sent emails to the entire board and they have not heard back. Some have sent multiple emails to the entire board and to individual school members and have not heard back. I'm here to let you know that they noticed this and if you really want to show classified employees that you care and respect them, send them a response when they reach out to you. They want their voices heard. We had the classified listening session last night, and thank you, Mike and the others, for taking the time to listen to what we had to say and to answer some of our questions. We do appreciate it when you take the time. One thing that was brought up was staff wellness. Staff are being told to take time for self-care, and I am sure there is some guidance on this, but little time for self-care. Century High School is putting together a staff wellness room, and this room is the work of a classified staff member at Century High School. She has started the project and continues to spearhead it and move it forward. While we all know that the wellness room works for students, it is often overlooked when it comes to staff. This room is not only the work of the staff, it is also self-funded by the staff. They are getting supplies on their own from donations amongst themselves and the community to set up the room and to operate the room. We would like to see this duplicated throughout the district and supported financially by the district for our staff's wellness. But I would like to close tonight with wishing you all a happy School Board Appreciation Month. I would like to acknowledge the work that you have done throughout your times on the board. Giving of your time is not always easy on your families, and so thank you for all of the time that you have given to HSD. Thank you.
Bill, are you ready?
Yes.
Thank you.
Jill Hillsboro Education Association. First, I want to give a shout out to my fellow educators, my peers who spoke tonight with so much passion and heart as they presented their course proposals. How fortunate are we to have such dedicated teachers who continue to go above and beyond to keep students engaged with additional pathways that allow for expansion and diversity. Like Nancy said, these teachers are superheroes. A bargaining update. We continue to make progress. We now have TA'd on 2, which is tentatively agreed upon, TA'd on 2 articles, one of which solved an ongoing issue regarding temporary job postings. We believe that upcoming full-day sessions in mid-February and early March will speed us along. It is our goal to address important language and financial issues thoroughly and hope to make significant progress in our next 3 bargaining sessions. With the listening sessions, Mike, Scott, and his team have completed the listening sessions in all feeder groups, elementary, middle school, and high school. And we'll be listening and finishing up with our TOSAs, which is the teachers on special assignment, this Thursday. We received so much positive feedback. These sessions opened up the communication lines in an authentic way to being in person and with smaller groups at specific levels. Educators felt listened to and the results were evident. At a time when so many teachers are thinking of leaving the profession and with the challenges of these last 2 years, this kind of open forum for listening proved to be invaluable. So thank you, Mike, and thank you, his team. Black History Month. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, said Martin Luther King Jr. This statement by the revered Martin Luther King speaks to so many things, including the basic values of our union. We stand together tonight in unity. When the Black Lives Matter movement began after the tragic death of George Floyd, I had many members contact me and ask what HEA was doing to support the movement and also asked the bigger question. How is the union addressing equity issues? Today, almost 2 years after that watershed moment in time, here's where we are. A committee organically came together called the Anti-Racist, Anti-Bias Teacher Coalition, ARABTC. Our goal is to uncover and address racism and bias that occurs for our staff within the district and also within our union. We meet monthly and we focus on issues that impact our BIPOC and LGBTQI2S+. We look to continue to take a hard look at our contract and organizational practices that may be implicitly biased. We have made contract proposals to reflect this work and are just beginning our journey. We look forward to reporting back to you in another year on all the ways in which we have grown. And to Seth, I'm sure that some of the things that were shared tonight were tough and were hurtful. And I just want to say thank you for standing up for the students and for being on the board this evening. And I'm sorry that the words were harmful, and just want you to know that the teachers stand with you. And I feel the need for the Anti-Racist, Anti-Bias Teacher Coalition, for those members to reach out to our gender diverse teachers to check on them, just in case they heard this conversation this evening, because I want to make sure that they know that they're cared for and that they're protected, and I want them to know that their union stands with them. And to the school board, we do see you in regards to the school board appreciation. We recognize your dedication and hard work in preparing today's students for tomorrow's world. Thank you for your commitment, for building collaborative relationships based on trust and teamwork. We appreciate you, and in recognition of all that you do, the Hillsboro Education Association has made a donation in your name to the Oregon Education Association Children's Foundation. The foundation provides educators with up to $100 grants to help students meet basic, urgent, and immediate needs so they can succeed in school. Thank you.
All right. Next up is student representatives time. Kaylee, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that today's discussion was a little bit tough. I think that it just reflected the decisions that were made, just reflected how the board really stands with their students and their diverse student body. And I think that that is something to celebrate, because I've seen repeatedly today that the Hillsboro School District does accept and does stand with their LGBTQIA+ community students. And I say that I am so happy and so proud to see the decisions made by the board continuously. And I'm always so, and I'm always so happy to be here, and seeing everybody's presentations always makes me so happy, because I just get to see so many of the cool and unique things that we do here at HSD. And it just makes me so happy to see, different careers being offered, different pathways, and just always putting our students first. And I think that it's just amazing. And we have the most amazing school board, and definitely leaders who paved the way for other school boards. And I just wanted to say thank you to our very, very amazing school board.
Thank you, Kaylee. Michelle, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure, I can go next. I think we have had a few rather uncomfortable conversations today, but I think it's important that at the end, I think it's good that we're staying focused on supporting students and teachers the best that we can is and always, focused, and it's always back on, focusing back on students. And I think, continuing to find every way that we can support them and knowing that they are heard, and especially like, yeah. And I'd like to thank like a lot of the community members who came and spoke out earlier in the meeting, and then also the school board for a lot of their hard work. And then also I especially like to give a shout out to a lot of the teachers that are working endlessly and selflessly for their students that they just truly really care about, and I think that they really deserve the shout out. And I think that like, yeah, I was gonna say something else, but now my mind is blank. But yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. Seth, do you have anything you'd like to add tonight?
Yeah, I want to say a very deep and heartfelt thank you, as always, to everyone who comes to present to the board, from everyone who gave public comment, either verbally or written today, to the teachers and curriculum advisory committee members who came to present about our new curriculum, to especially our HCU and HEU representatives. Thank you for staying late. I'm sorry that we kept you so long. I know that you're all busy people with busy lives, but you really provide an invaluable service to this district. And I wanted to recognize that. I'm especially noticing the discussion of respect and feeling like you're looking for more responsiveness from the board. I think that was a very valuable piece of feedback. I am hoping that the rest of the board implements that and understands that. And just thank you for everything that you do to speak to us. And then I just wanted to take a chance to again speak directly to anybody who might be listening. Again, it is quite late. To any of the trans or gender nonconforming or LGBTQ plus, generally people who might have been watching today's meeting and dealing with it. It's hard. It's hard to hear these things come up as a point of discussion or of debate, because it's just a part of who you are as a person, and a part that you'd hope would be respected just as much as anything else. But I think what tonight showed, when it came down to the actual votes about these things, is that the district does have our back. The district does have the best interests of its queer staff members and students at heart, and will continue to protect them regardless of how things might be discussed. In terms of our actual actions, we reflected that tonight, and I really appreciate it. And I will continue to be here to advocate for this perspective, because I think it matters a great deal, especially in today's climate. And I know that it's likely not the last discussion we'll have like this throughout this year. But again, I'm grateful to the work of the board for continuing to pursue policies to create a safe and welcome environment for every student and every staff member, regardless of any personal qualities. So thank you for all of that tonight. And I hope we have a good evening.
Thank you. Next up is Superintendent's time.
Thank you. First of all, again, happy Board Appreciation Month. Very thankful for your service, and I think tonight was a good example of some tough conversations that we're having. Just appreciate the time and energy and effort and attention that you pay to the district and on behalf of our students. As you've heard mentioned by a number of different people, we've had a variety of listening sessions. We've engaged in listening sessions with the licensed staff, the classified staff, and we're in the middle of engaging listening sessions with our high school students. And the entire goal of that is to better understand the challenges that currently exist this year. I think Mark says this well, that no matter what year you're in your career, this is your hardest year. And I think that is very much as we have these conversations. The entire goal of these listening sessions is not only to understand the challenges, but also to find some, to be able to apply some solutions and some relief during a very difficult time. I think I've also had the opportunity to do several school visits over the last couple of weeks. That is always the best part of the week. I am always encouraged and amazed by what I see happening in schools. And it's just, it's a needed boost during challenging times for sure. I want to spend a little time talking about the discrimination conversation that happened earlier in this meeting. And typically during those conversations, it is a time for board members to weigh in. It's not always appropriate for me to weigh in during board discussion time. But during superintendent time here with a chance for comments, it's, I feel like I can do that. And this is an issue that I can't stay silent on because the consequences are too big for our students. And I feel they're also too big for our community. And I'd like to just appreciate the bravery of our students and the conversations that you weighed into tonight. Thank you for that. That is difficult as an adult who does this on a regular basis. And I think it's especially challenging for students to weigh in on this. We brought the changes to these policies, we brought the policies forward because there were changes and there were some requirements in state law that required that we do that. We also brought them forward because it's part of our values to make sure that we're engaging in policy revisions that continue to meet the needs of our students. This certainly was not meant to be an attack on people of faith. Instead, it was meant to meet the needs of students that are marginalized, othered, and dehumanized on a regular basis. And as a person of faith, I feel like it's my duty to stand in the gap for those that are often discriminated against. As a person of faith and as an educator, my charge and my purpose is to do that. As a district, our pledge is to support all of our students. Our pledge is to provide all of our students with the opportunities and protections that some of our students have. And to all of the students and staff out there who have somehow been made to feel less than or somehow othered in our schools, I want to apologize for that. We see you, we hear you, we support you and respect you, and we pledge to continue to do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Board of Directors time, we have 3 here, 2 online. We'll ping pong back and forth. Director Lopez, would you like to start?
I was gonna say start on, I saw somebody was ready, but sure, whatever you think. Actually, no, wait for me at the end. I'll wait a little bit.
Dr. Ward, would you like to start?
I'm gonna do the same thing, so I'll wait a little bit.
Okay. Vice Chair, you can't go. Director Martinez, would you like to start?
Wow, I guess somebody has to start. It's hard to put into words the difficult conversations had today. I'm glad these policies were approved and passed. It's much needed to keep all of our kids protected. And I'm sorry that it was such a discussion. It really, in my opinion, shouldn't have been. So I'm sorry if this did cause any of our students or staff listening, or just, you know, our community members that were listening, any pain. That wasn't at all what we wanted. So I'm just glad that they got passed and that we're keeping our students and staff safe and knowing that they feel heard and seen, respected, supported at our district. On a lighter note, the new courses that were introduced today were fantastic. I'd be interested in having like some type of capstone presentation at the end of those senior years, just because it's always nice to see that work that our students do in the community. I remember my senior year in college, our capstone project was a big part of it and we got to present it and it was fantastic. So I would also, I'm interested in the film festival as well, but definitely want to see those capstone projects and all the good work our students are doing in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Either of you ready? Nancy, I'm supposed to go last, so either of you ready to go? No? All right. Director Allen, would you like to give it a shot?
Sure. You can always count on me to have something to say. I'm not going to say a lot. It's a late meeting. I appreciate everyone's words of reflection so far. So thank you for that. And also thank you for the thank yous in terms of Board Appreciation Month. Like Mark says, we forget that it exists, and then it's always really exciting to be reminded. So to like people who remember in the month to be like, Happy Board Appreciation Month in our email, we really like that makes our month. So thank you. And also, I don't think that it's very necessary. We've got other folks who do much more that we should appreciate. Like right now, all of the staff who are doing jobs that are not their own jobs in order to keep us operational, right? Like, thank you for allowing our kids to get an education. We appreciate it. And then I also want to, I heard Melody, you share that there's some concern about our reachability, and I just we do get a lot more email now than we used to in the time of COVID. There are days when we counted and we've gotten like 75 emails. So it is definitely possible that we missed something and it has fallen through the cracks. I will say big kudos to Mark, because as chair, he's done, I think, better than any of our previous like 4 chairs. And as one of those people, I can say for sure, at least better than me, at responding to folks in a timely manner. And so if someone was missed via email, it was certainly an oversight and definitely not intentional. So I just want to make that clear. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. I'm sure that Mark, like me, is going to be going through his email very soon and trying to find what he missed. And we'll find it. Yes, we will. And I also echo the about the new course proposals that were approved. Those are always the highlight of the meeting when they come around. And I'm also happy that our policies were able to be approved. Following the letter of the law is obviously very important, and ensuring that people are not discriminated against does seem like common sense. So it is really unfortunate that we have to have conversations about those things. But, you know, sometimes we're going to have uncomfortable conversations, and I appreciate everyone for sharing their thoughts. And also, you know, I think that each of our student representatives really shared perspective, and I appreciate you being open and brave and vulnerable in a Zoom full and room full of adults when you don't necessarily have that power. And so taking up that space and using your voice when it's important to you, I think is something to be treasured. So thank you for doing that, you all. And I guess that's all that I'll say. So have a good evening. See you in February.
Thank you.
Okay,
Dr. Lopez?
I'll go with that. So taking a note from especially a lot of the culture of care that we do in HSD, and these topics and conversations really do impact our emotional health, our mental health, and I was just trying to regulate myself. So that's something that I think is really important for all of us, that our district is really like a microcosm of all of these thoughts and ideas and emotions and passions and beliefs that are happening across our nation. And we see all of these conversations happening in different spaces, but I think that there's also a lot to be said about how they can be constructive and how they can be respectful and how they can be kind. And I think the other thing that I wanted to mention is just also not speaking a lot during the motions was really because we have our students here, and in a lot of these conversations, those voices aren't as elevated. So I think a lot of our board members were really gracious in making sure that those voices were the ones that are needed to be heard. And just kudos to our students for taking up that space that so deservedly is yours. And that's why we wanted to have our students here as part of our board members. And then I think the other thing that I just took away from a lot of our conversation is really the need for us to not continue to perpetuate like othering people. And
I think that, right, a long time ago, it was people that looked like me. And we just want to continue not to do that.
Thank you. Dr. Ward, do you have anything tonight?
So, I think that, I'd like to say first, thanks for the outpouring of support from all the schools, all the swag that they've left all of us. I thank everyone for the presentations and for their answering all the questions that get sent to them. I appreciate that, the promptness on that. I also want to say on the discussions that occurred tonight that the intent was never to hurt anyone. Despite that's the fact that that happened, but the other side of that is, as a person of faith, that I have a responsibility and desire to say, you know what, there is a God and I'm accountable to him. And I cannot sit by and not speak what's on my mind as well. So I can respect everyone in their opinions, and I hope that people would respect mine. Thank you.
Thomas?
My favorite quote is that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else is more important. Tonight, there was courage in the room. Whether you agreed with everyone or not, I appreciate the conversation. The other part of the quote is that courage doesn't come without some discomfort sometimes. We learned a little bit tonight. It was uncomfortable. And I just want to remind us that even though we may not be unanimous in our thought, we are uniformly together to take care of the children of this district and their families without fail. I want our children to know that. I want all of the students to know that, all the families, everyone. Because like Director Lopez said, there was a time when this space would not have been allowed at the table. That is never lost on me, never lost on me. So I appreciate this seat at the table. I appreciate the table. I appreciate the discomfort, and I appreciate the comfort and the direction upon which we're going. We are in a phenomenal district, and I'll do everything I can in my power to make sure that it stays a phenomenal district. And we're going to get better and better, and we're going to get more diverse, and we're going to take care of all the kids, and we're going to get all of this stuff that makes us uncomfortable. It'll come to pass. But I just urge us to keep going. We have a mission. We have a duty. I thank our young people for speaking their truth. That is so important. It is so important. Whether I agree with you or not is irrelevant. I need you to speak your truth at all times. And I thank you for that. And to all the teachers and to all the people that are here supporting family, friends, teachers, and organizations, thank you. Thank you for making this an inclusive group so that people from diverse backgrounds, people who are not born in the Pacific Northwest, can still show up and still contribute. That means something. So I just wanted to say thank you.
I want to thank all the people who presented tonight, and thank you for the presentations on the new classes. It really is one of the highlights of our year. And I very much look forward to the Marvel style film project celebrating one of our superhero teachers.
They didn't say that.
It's gonna be pretty good. I want to thank the administration, the classified staff, the licensed staff that are working so hard to keep our buildings open every day. It's not easy, and we know in-person instruction is what our students need, and I appreciate that you guys are all working hard at that every single day. Melody, I don't take lightly the idea that I'm missing emails, so I may follow up with you on that later. I feel like I've been pretty good at it, and if I'm falling down on the job, I want to correct that mistake. I will say that if we get 84 emails in 3.5 minutes and they're all the same thing, clicked from a form, I do my best to sort out Warrenton and Bend and Clackamas and just find the ones that are from our district and reply to those. And even if it's a reform email, I do reply to those. I think the board members see most of that. I will say that well, not even recently, apparently 14 days ago, there was one that I missed. It went into my spam folder, and the entire time I've been here, I don't know that I've ever looked in the spam folder. So maybe now a thing I have to do on a more regular basis. So yeah, I don't take that comment lightly. It's important to me to be responsive to our constituents and to our staff. So if I'm falling down on that job, I promise to do better. I thank everybody for the heartfelt conversation this evening. I want to apologize to Director Ward for fumbling some of the parliamentary stuff at the outset. It shouldn't be that difficult to ask for discussion on something. Really appreciate the bravery of our students tonight. Thanks for showing up and speaking out. Dr. Thomas is right. The work is uncomfortable, but the work of diversity, equity, inclusion is very important to this board. And at its core, one of the first things they tell us as we did these training exercises was that's going to be uncomfortable. And I'm this gray-haired white guy who grew up in Chicago, so got a lot of undoing to do here. Hopefully it's understood that this board is very committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, and that's probably good enough. Thanks, everybody. We are adjourned.